From Toronto to Tokyo, and from Thonia to Syrinx, this is The Basement, your companion to the Ready Player One novel. Join our hosts each episode for complete chapter breakdowns and deep dives into the pop culture references through a series of challenges and homework assignments. The Basement is the Ready Player One podcast for people who love things. And now, please welcome Albert and the rest of the Gunters for this week's episode. Hello, Gunters. You are in the basement. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 13, 14, and 15, an episode we're calling The High Five. So that's a direct quote from the novel. We'll get to that here in just a few minutes. But joining me, as always, please welcome to the show, Mr. Will Wilkins. Will, what is going? Look at you.
That's right. We're going full Adams College today, sir.
We are going to talk some Revenge of the Nerds, so I'm glad you went all in. I mean, you even got the gym locker going on there, the hat. Okay, so where do you get this stuff from?
So my little brothers on the Virginia side of the family went to Annandale, and their mascot was the Adams. So one of them had already graduated, and one was in high school, and neither one of them had actually seen Revenge of the Nerds, even though this is literally their school hat. Yeah. The John Goodman hat is theirs, and they weren't aware of it.
Oh, wow. Have they seen it since? You know, do they like
no, we watched it together with the parents. I forgot how that was not appropriate. But we did watch it as a family. The reviews were mixed, as you might expect.
Right.
How you doing today?
I'm doing good. I finally got my headphones back. So I don't know if you know, I was rocking the little earbuds for Apple for about the last 2 or 3 shows, but these broke. I use a Shure 840s. Which I highly recommend if anybody cares. They're great. They're not that expensive, like 150 bones. And they come with a 2-year warranty, but they've replaced these things twice, which I don't know, probably says something about the product, but at least they repair them and there's like no questions asked. So I'm pretty happy. And I really like these headphones. They're great. They're very comfortable and I can hear every little blip and beep. So
it's excited. Just you and me tonight. So light a candle and pop a bottle of wine. It's date night, baby.
Yeah. we haven't done this in a while. So
yeah, and we're doing 3 episodes.
Sort of. Yeah, I mean, it's 3 episodes. Yeah,
it's one episode with 3 chapters.
It's a mega episode. That's right.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Let's get into it. Let's talk about. We're going to start with chapter 13, 14, 15. We'll do the recap first. So I'll do that real quick, and then we'll hop right into 13 and start talking about some of the narrative. So let's see. For 12. Now in first place on the scoreboard, having cleared the first gate, Wade tries to cope with reality. He's now infamous. Trying to ground himself again, Wade reaches out to his best friend, H, and sends an underhanded love letter to Artemis. He tries to focus on solving the next clue, but it can only focus on Artemis. And I thought we'd just kind of pop right into, we'll kind of step through, because this show's going to be a little bit longer, I thought we would just step through all of the narrative pieces. We'll take it 13 first. We'll break, come back to the 14 narrative, go into the pop after that, and then same thing with 15 at the very end. So with 13,
I'm in, coach.
So it opens up with, we get the sense that IROC we mentioned this in the last episode. He's out there running his mouth. I think he's telling people that he knows who they are. This all is, I guess what the question is, why does this, and this is kind of a loaded question because we talked a little bit about this again last episode, but why is this a bad thing that he's out there at the forefront saying, I know these guys, I know what school they go to? How does that play out a little bit later here in the novel?
Well, I think ultimately, this is a game of blackmail that he's playing throughout this chapter.
Yeah.
And I think he recognizes that, knowledge is power. And in this case, knowledge is money, and money corrupts completely. So to some degree, he recognizes that if he can leverage that against Artemis, then he can at least get up on the scoreboard and get some credits of his own. But snitches,
man. I mean, and Sorrento uses this later on. I mean, it's almost a blackmail. We'll get to that here in one chapter. But this really kind of opens the door as well. Like this opens the door for other Gunters like Daisho, right? We come to find out they've actually gotten close now. They put 2 and 2 together, realizing that, okay, if H and Parzival are from, they go to school on Ludus, that naturally leads them to go look on Ludus first, which, they come in on the next chapter. Or no, it's right after this. We realize that they end up clearing the first gate, and it's because they've got the copper key, I should say, but it's because they were working together. They did it within 15 minutes of each other. And it's our first introduction to them. We'll get into the description of them in just a little bit later. At that point, he goes into the quatrain and he really starts to kind of dive into it. Now, he doesn't take the whole quatrain he doesn't take all 4 lines of it. He really kind of hyper focuses on the first 2. And it says, the captain's part of it, the dwelling long neglected. And I just want to ask you, as you were reading the novel, did you ever stop at any point and like try to figure out these riddles that were going on as they were happening? Or did you just take it and read it through the book? Or did you ever like put the book down and try to speculate or come up with kind of some theories as to what was going on there?
Well, in fact, I guarantee I didn't put as much thought into it as I'm sure you did as you went through it. But, in retrospect, now that I know the answer to the quatrain without ruining it, it just felt like the structure of the quatrain, even though he goes into it, is a bit disjointed. So, there's any kind of number of rhyming schemes they could have used for the quatrain.
Yeah.
So what he ends up using is an ABCB, where just the B, the second line of the quatrain, and the fourth line rhyme, and A and B A and C are independent, the first and third line, right? So if he had written this as a standard quatrain with a rhyming couplet, it would have made more sense, because then you would have logically been able to marry the clues together based on the rhyming scheme with, if it was like A, B, with A being the 2 clues related to Captain Crunch and B being the 2 clues related to Zork. But he didn't do that. So maybe I was awake in English class when you weren't, Albert. Maybe that's what it was.
This guy know how to party or what? I'm going to keep wearing that joke out until I can. No, I get what you're saying. And we actually had the same like high school English class. And so I would have to say that Miss Ladson would be very proud of what you've just described and explained here. So you're welcome to her.
You're welcome.
No, and I totally get what you're saying. As I was reading the novel, I did, but to be honest, I was so enthralled. Hey, JR is with us tonight. Welcome to the show, sir. As I was reading the novel, I really tried to put it down and try to speculate, but I was just so ingrained and entrenched, especially during the first reading. Well, every reading, but especially during the first reading, I wasn't even thinking this method. I just wanted to know more. Like, I really want to get through this book as quickly as possible and get to the end to try to figure out and understand how it's kind of all played out. So,
and full disclosure, by the time we got to this point of the book, I really felt, and maybe this isn't, part of the novel, that these clues were set almost in a way, very Willy Wonka-y for Artemis specifically. Like, I'm not intended to be able to solve this, because as we go through, in fact, the next 3 chapters, and even going on when he finally, solves the quatrain, it's like, oh, how did I not know this? And he gets the benefit of just happening to know exactly what he needs to know to solve this quatrain.
Yes. No, I get it. And the next part of this is he starts to get all these sponsorships, right? There's different people. There's somebody that wants to come to him and offer him like a sponsorship for an Oasis rig is one piece of it. He mentions a pizza delivery chain wants to use his name as well. And then he says there's also like a lunchbox and action figures. And I thought, okay, action figures make sense. But then you think about the world that they're in today. I'm not saying a lot of people don't go to physical schools, because I think he mentions in there that there are still physical schools out there. But most people, should they be able to afford it and all that, they prefer to send their kids to Ludus or to take school in the Oasis. And I thought, well, okay, there's not much, there can't be that big of a demand or I guess a need for lunchboxes. But that's
it could be just like, in the 80s, there were times where I brought a lunchbox when I wasn't bringing lunch, just because it was cool. If you had like the A-Team lunchbox, it's coming with me. It's an accessory. Right. Like, I want kids to know I got this new Knight Rider freaking lunchbox. Maybe that's what it is in the future. That it's just like it's like a MERS.
The MERS badge of honor. It's bling is the term that they used in the 90s. Hey, we use that term. But yeah, no, I agree that maybe that's what it was. But anyway, I'm probably fretting over a little silly stuff there. But so I got to ask you a question. So if you were, let's say you were a big time, celebrity, which you're not. But let's say if you were, would you, if you had to sponsor any product right now, like something that's just pops in your head, like, oh man, I love this thing. What product would you sponsor?
All right, two things, right? So for sure, I would sponsor limited run games. Limited
Mm.
run games and Retrobit right now for me are my absolute obsessions. They make great products, not just reissues of former games that are licensed by the original game manufacturers, but also really high quality homebrews, just like this. This is the collector's edition of Jay and Silent Bob's Mall Brawl. If you
Oh,
don't have this for your NES, get it today.
I
In fact,
can you
there's
put that
the
back up
actual
real quick.
endorsement.
Put that back up there. I want to see that. Yeah, so I heard this was like they used, was it the Double Dragon engine? They used some
Yeah.
engine.
Yeah, it's the Double
Uh,
Dragon engine.
is it? That's awesome.
But they did a really good job of building the environments out in this game, and it plays really well. There's a lot of nods to the movie in it. Yeah, you should definitely pick that one up. The other thing I would endorse, Albert, and I'm sure you might be on board with this, is I would endorse Pancho's Mexican restaurant. If I were a billionaire, I would reopen that franchise all over the state. There's only a couple of them left, and I'm willing to drive to get to them. So God bless you, Houston and Dallas Fort Worth, for keeping those Panchos open. Us San Antonians couldn't do it.
I know.
It's a shame.
It is a shame. I can't, I need to make a note. We'll try to tag them. Are they have a social media presence?
Who's that?
Top Ponchos.
Panchos? I believe that you can take an advertisement out in the paper. I don't know if they're up on the tech.
I don't know.
I'll look it up.
All right. You can do
You
some.
don't want to just start randomly putting the word ponchos and hashtags. I'm not sure what you're going to get back.
Yeah. All right. Well, while you look that up, if we get a chance, if they are, we'll tag them on this show when we post stuff.
You
and
should.
see if we get a response.
Greatest restaurant ever.
That is a great restaurant. We spent many a dollar there and many a night there. Oh, let's see. All right, let's get into. He talks about the endorsement money, and this we get to see this full front a little bit later down in a few chapters here. But he actually takes all this money that he's accruing from all the endorsements and the sponsorships and all the paperwork signed. He signs like a 1-year contract, and he doesn't really read the fine print. He says because he doesn't really care after a year, no big deal. But he's going to use all this money in a little bit here to pick up and leave and head to Columbus, Ohio, where Gregarious Systems Simulations is located, and so he's kind of planning his future in that sense. So the next part of this chapter we get into is the offer letter, and the first part, and this offer letter it's kind of weird. It's part offer, but it's also part threat, right? There's some like veiled threats in throughout all of this, and he acknowledges that. I mean, he can see right through it that that's exactly what they're doing. But he goes ahead and he entertains the offer anyways. They talk about Sorrento and talk about how he's got a PhD. He was a former game designer, and Wade even compliments him and says he was actually a pretty good one, that he had played some of the games as well. But I have a question. Do you think this, and that's pure conjecture again, because we have no background really on Sorrento outside of what we see in the novel, but do you think he was one of these characters that was a good person that became corrupt after he went to IOI? Or do you think he was already kind of shady and just this was a natural fit, natural lateral movement for him, or I guess, if you will?
I'm surprised by you, Albert. Surprised, because we do have quite a bit of background on Sorrento. So did you read Andy Weir, the guy who wrote The Martian? He did a fan fiction of a short story called Lucero.
Yes.
So you've read that, right? So
yes.
That short story is basically Sorrento's background. So it gives you an idea of what his motivation was. And although the novel and more so even in the movie, they just paint him as this greedy guy, but in the background, which Ernest Cline has called canon, and in fact, some editions actually carry that short story within the novel itself, said, look, he's disgusted with humanity. He says, and it really speaks to the environmental messaging that is carried throughout Ready Player One, where he is saying, look, everybody wants to complain about things, but no one has the willingness to take responsibility to fix it, right? Instead, they themselves promote escapism into the oasis over action, right? And that mentality is actually what led to the death of his sister in the oasis, right? So she ended up just rotting there for 3 days before they found their body. And that's when he made the decision that he was going to rise into the IOI ranks, because he recognized that if he were able to go and get all the keys and run Oasis, he could shut it down and destroy it and force people to go back. And I get that it's not supposed to be a message where, okay, Sorrento's a good guy. It's just supposed to just move the lens a little bit so that you see that this isn't someone who is motivated by greed,
Yes.
but almost motivated to just advance. He must get this so that he can destroy it. And it puts a whole new flair on it. I'm sure you read it. So what are your thoughts on that?
No, I would agree. It was almost kind of like I make the reference, and I'm going to have to use this reference because it's the closest thing to my heart. But, think about Star Wars, right? There's always these people, and I'm kind of joking, but I'm not. There's always this reference or this, comparison between the Empire and the Rebellion and whether or not, and who really is the bad guy, right? And is everybody evil that sits on the Galactic Empire, that kind of thing. And you come to find out these are real people. They've got real life responsibilities, things they're trying to do. Yeah, they may not agree with it, but they don't always all start that way, right? A lot of it starts very innocently and very sincere. And the same kind of thing here. So yeah, it definitely gives you a certain point of view from a different perspective of him. And I like that about that. I like characters that are gray. I like characters that aren't black and white. And I think reading the novel at first when it comes out, it is very black and white. And if you look at the movie, the Ready Player One movie, he's portrayed completely as black and white. There's never any doubt in your mind, right, that he's not evil. And that's okay for the movie. But for books and those types of things, I like those characters that are a little bit more complex that you really, can point to them and say, I don't like that guy, but he's really not always all that bad. And I can see where things went wrong or where he took a different turn and decided to, his fate was determined as we see it now.
Yeah, one of the criticisms you often see of Ernest Cline's writing is just that his characters are shallow. They typically don't go through a arc. And I like that Andy Weir gave depth to a character where he was far more black and white if you just, read the book. And that dimension gives so much more flavor because it's not just it gives more social context to the way sometimes we might think about the world today, where people are quick to be SJWs, get on their keyboards and start complaining about things, but they're not willing to do the work necessary in order to enact that change. They think that by me reposting something on social media, that's the difference I'm making, where in fact, a lot of times what you need to do is exactly what Sorrento is doing. You need to find a way to make yourself something that matters. And as you're making yourself that something, retain your moral compass to the point that you can enact the change that you intended to before you got that power. And it's difficult to do, but it's a much more difficult to do than just, a social media post about something you don't like.
Yeah. Wow. That's very powerful. Thank you for coming to William's TED Talk. We'll come back here and pick up on the show. No, that was good. Very well said. All joking aside. All right. This chapter ends with him joining the chat link session with Sorrento. So he agrees to do this. Any thoughts as to why? It's on the surface. He kind of says, well, I just want to see what this is all about. And he has it in his head that if nothing else, he'll just post this on YouTube and that kind of thing. But I don't know. I always question about what his motives really were. And do you think down deep inside him, he felt like maybe there is a legit deal here? Or do you think he went into this thinking there's really no legit deal, but I'm going to go through the motions because what do I got to lose kind of thing?
Yeah, I think both of those are true. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think to some degree you have to go in, and I think Wade's smart enough to know that the persona that's pitched out there, Sorrento and IOI, is largely the product of people who are on message boards, media, and we don't trust those even today. We don't trust those the same way that we would trust our own analytic approach. And clearly he's an analytical guy. So he goes into that. And in my opinion, he's just trying to validate, is he the black and white figure that, the book portrays him to be, or is he somewhere in the gray spectrum that you described earlier?
Yeah. Okay. No, that's that's a good point that they're not mutually exclusive. You can have both of them like that. So, all right, well, let's, just quickly, what he says is, I wanted to know exactly what IOI was going to offer, and I couldn't pass up the chance to meet Nolan Sorrento, the Sixers' infamous leader. There was no danger meeting with him via chat link as long as I was careful about what I said. And he was pretty careful about what he said, but again, he didn't realize that Sorrento kind of had a ace up his sleeve in all of this.
So, Albert, you didn't think during this part when he's meeting with Sorrento the first time that it was, dude, he was a little childish. Like I get that you don't have a lot of respect for him, but it wasn't like he he acted to me in these scenes a little out of character. It was a little too immature,
Yeah.
right? For someone that had accomplished, as much as Wade's accomplished at this point in the book. I don't
I
know.
saw this as like, I mean, he's what, 17 years old, 18, whatever it is. I don't know. You think about where, at least I think about where I was at that age. And I think I had moments of brilliance, moments of clarity, moments of maturity. But man, I can tell you what, I had a lot of stupid moments where I got in over my head, thought I was real cocky. And I think some of that probably is
Mhm.
playing into this or factoring in some way. And I think I don't think he was. And then this is what we talked about earlier, or way back. I think when you first came back on the show, we were talking about the Mary Sue characters, right? The people that
Mhm.
do no wrong and never make a bad move, never take a bad step, and they're infallible in a lot of ways. And I think this is a maybe not a strong moment where that's certainly him showing his chinks in the armor, but it is. I think it just speaks to his lack of maturity. I think he can do
No,
it. He can turn on, but
that's an excellent point. You're right, because at 17 we were pretty much the same kind of people. We had the ability to be very mature and professional, and then we're running around the school shirtless, wearing a horse head.
yes, or putting on really crazy, out of this world type religious plays at our Catholic church, right? I mean, all
Yeah,
that is crazy.
that's true. Or dyeing each other's hair red. That also happened.
Yeah, that happened too. All right, let's talk about chapter 13. We're going to get into the pop now. I've got a technical problem that you won't see if you're listening to this on the podcast. I do apologize. And you probably won't notice it here, but if I'm fumbling around a couple things, I do apologize in advance because this thing is not behaving with me tonight. So, okay. So the first reference is roaming the halls unnoticed. I decided that I enjoyed having a secret identity. It made me feel like Clark Kent or Peter Parker, and I thought my dad would probably have gotten a kick out of that. So let's talk about Peter Parker and I'm sorry, well, Superman and Spider-Man, and then respectively, we'll talk about Clark Kent and Peter Parker. Now, I've got on this slide here, I've got a couple of different, and we're not going to break down every man. I mean, I was really trying to like, how do I want to tackle this? Do I want to spend 30 minutes talking about Superman and Spider-Man? I really don't, because I think if you're listening to the show, I think these are arguably two of the most iconic characters in media, period. Right. But I thought it'd be interesting just to kind of talk about some of our favorite heroes that have played, our favorite actors that have played Superman and Spider-Man and all that. But just quickly, the Superman was created in 1938 by Jerry Siegel, Joe Shuster. First appeared in Action Comics #1 with Peter Parker. That was Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. He appeared in Amazing Fantasy #15. I think we all know that, and those covers are pretty iconic here. But and I've got this. These are like from the 80s here, where you've got Clark Kent and you've got Peter Parker. They're very different in terms of their approach, right? Clark Kent has just glasses, and I didn't mean to do that. Sorry, he has just glasses, which I always thought was kind of a weak disguise until I saw Zoe Deschanel. You ever seen her without her glasses?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, she's like unrecognizable.
Wait, did you say without her glasses?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I've seen that too.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, without her glasses, I don't recognize her. And I think about like the way she looks in Elf, with the blonde hair, no glasses. She looks nothing like she looks in Hey Girl or New Girl, right?
Hey girl.
Hey girl. Hey girl.
Just invented a new show.
I know. I was thinking about the song, Hey Girl, but what you doing? All right. Anyways, so that is the glasses thing, and of course it was a long time ago. I'm not going to really bang on that too much here, but I also went and looked at like how many times each of these characters has revealed their secret identity, and for me in my head, it seemed like it was a lot more, like way more than the actual numbers. And for Superman, he's done it 9 times now. For Spider-Man, he's only done it 5 times. So there have been, and it seems like every time they do reveal their secret identities, it's usually right on the verge of some kind of a reboot, or sales are starting to slump and they need to pick up, readership and, engagement and all that. So they go ahead and do this, and then they come back and they pull it back some way. Oh, it was just a dream, or it was just this, it was just that. They'd have a way to explain it off so that they don't get painted in the corner with their identity constantly being revealed. I've not been following Superman. Michael Bendis is one of my favorite writers. He's currently writing Superman. He came over from Marvel, where he did an amazing job with Marvel, and he's taken a lot of flack because he's like came out of the gates revealing his identity, among other things as well. So that Superman title right now is kind of in a lot of controversy. But more importantly, and here's where I want you to chime in. Let's talk about all these Superman. Now, I don't have all of them on the screen. Okay, I only picked a couple of them here, but I have Christopher Reeve, who was Superman from 78 to 87, Henry Cavill, who's 2013 to the present, George Reeves, who I remember watching, and I don't know when it was. Like, I know I watched this show religiously when it was on, and it was in Syndicate, probably on TNT or, some other channel of some sort. But I remember watching this Superman a lot. I've got Dean Cain up there, who, I don't know, looks a little rugged, but he's 93 to 97. And then we had Brandon Ruth, who was in from 2006 to 2009 or 2000. I forget now how he did 2 movies on that, or 1 movie. But so if you're looking at these actors here, is one of these your favorite Superman actors, or am I missing somebody on this? Because there are other ones like Lois and Clark and all that.
Yeah, no, I think so. You've got Lois and Clark. For me, yeah, I'm a Christopher Reeve guy all day. First time seeing Superman on the big screen, which was at a drive-in theater, changed my life. It was amazing. I think that one guy summed it up best when he was like, "Whoo, man, that is one fly outfit."
Bad outfit. By the way, when we covered Superman, we did like a character dissection on that actor, and there's a lot of details there. Yeah, it's on one of the older. Yep. Anyways, he's got a whole history, but go on.
Terry Hatcher, my favorite, Lois Lane. On to you, sir. What do you got?
Yeah, sorry, I do have Lois and Clark. What is the one I'm thinking of? Smallville. That's the one. I don't have Smallville up here, and I'm missing some of like the early iterations before Mr. Reeves, George Reeves was on.
Yeah, and that's colorized. He was never colored, right?
He was never colorized. Well, I don't know. They may have done. No, well, not when it was on. It was certainly black and white. Yeah. Yeah, for me, it's Christopher Reeve. I mean, no mistake. Make no mistake about it. And to your point, like, it was just. I mean, that the promo for that movie was "You'll Believe a Man Can Fly" or something like that, right? And to me, as a kid, I absolutely took that hook, line, and sinker. Completely bought in on this idea that there was a Superman, and there was just something about him, his presence, and the way he portrayed Superman. I think much like we're going to talk about a little bit later with like Captain America, he was like who we all wanted to aspire to be. Like, he was a symbol of light, a symbol of hope. Who we, truth, justice, and the American way, right? I mean, all that was who we wanted to be. And those kind of characters, especially you think about where we were in the 70s, right? In that period of time, and coming off of the really horrible 60s and how everything was really bad. And this is, again, I hate to bring Star Wars into it, and I'm going to do it again later, but I hate to bring Star Wars into it. But during this time period.
Will that be the last time that you bring Star Wars?
No, it will not be. But Star Wars was successful because it was a movie about hope. It wasn't dark and dreary like so much of the movies so much of the film and media that was coming off the 60s. And again, here I think we had this beacon of hope in Superman, right? We had somebody to believe in all over again. So anyway, all of this plays into my psyche as a young kid at the age of 4, 5, whenever this thing came out for me. Yeah, I absolutely loved it. I think I was a little bit older than that. Sorry. 5 years old.
I thought out of all the Supermen too, he did the best job of balancing the Superman versus Clark Kent. Like, I buy his Clark Kent. I don't buy it from just about anybody else, right? Like, Brandon's way too handsome to be pulling off, like, put some glasses on him. Look, dude, you're still pulling skirts, bro. There's no way. But I could almost buy that Christopher Reeve, when he puts on the glasses and messes his hair up, he doesn't have the sweet curly curl, that, he could possibly roll with us.
Right. Yeah, he is my favorite. I like Cavill. I like what he's doing, and I like Ruth as well. I don't have a lot of negativity there with those guys, but all different actors, and you got a lot of what we see from them isn't always just them, right? It's also the writers and the directors and the direction that they're given. So, or costume design, right? You think about like Tim Burton and what he was doing with Batman. That was very different and all that. But anyway, we're not going to talk about Batman. So let's talk about Spider-Man. That is not the most attractive picture of Tobey Maguire, by the way.
No, that's the one that's hanging in your room.
that's me on the can at your Taco Bell. All right, so here are the different Spider-Man. I've got Andrew Garfield there. Shamik Moore, who does the voice for Miles Morales. Did you see that Spider-Man?
It's phenomenal. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I've seen it several times.
Yes. I absolutely love it. And I have 2 animated on here just because I really like that movie that much. You got Tobey Maguire in the middle. That's obviously the scene where he's trying to stop the train from going to the train station, whatever it is. The train, what is it called? Subway car?
Yep.
I don't know. I don't live anywhere where there's a subway, as you can tell. And then there's Jake Johnson from New Girl, coincidentally enough. But
Hey, girl.
Hey, girl. And then I got Tom Holland. But if you had to pick one of these as your Spider-Man, and it doesn't have to be these, who would you pick?
I don't know that I could. I think that of all of the actors that have played different, superheroes, they have done a phenomenal job, in my opinion, of always casting good Spider-Man. Like I've bought all of them. Like every one of them that they've had in the last 20 years, I thought did a good job. And then every time they introduce a new one, they do slightly better, right? Like, so I don't know that I could limit my pick to any one of them.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, no, I couldn't do it. Maybe Andrew, even though he's probably the least popular, I'd probably pick Andrew.
Andrew Garfield?
Yeah.
He was just my problem with him was he was like extremely tall, and that sounds like superficial, but beyond that, I thought he did a really good job playing him.
Do you have height envy about this situation?
I've had height envy since I was like 4th grade.
Really? I could care less. I am tall of mind.
Tall of stature, body, mind.
Hey, so what I thought would be fascinating, in fact, just because you brought up Miles, it would have been interesting if they would have just done a Spider-Verse where they brought all of these Spider-Men back. I heard a rumor they were talking about doing it with Batman.
I hadn't heard that. I know they've got another one planned. It
was on the internet. I read it on the internet.
Oh, okay. I'm piling
and verified it via Reddit. So there you go.
It's got to be true. For me, I'm gonna have to say Tom Holland. I may just be caught up in the whole Marvel thing, but he seems to be the more balanced. Like I can find faults in all of the other ones, and I have a hard time finding faults with him.
Is he even American?
No, he's not. He's British.
That's what I'm talking about. Spider-Man's an American institution.
Well, I don't think Garfield is either. He's British as well.
Well, I can't even stand for this.
I'm out here.
I'm going Miles Morales.
No, there's your boy in the middle there, Tobey Maguire. He's all American.
Yeah, he is. But he did a dancing scene, so I'm not sure I could pick him.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, my God.
A terrible scene.
That's going to follow his career forever.
Oh, yeah.
I don't care if he's acting when he's 60. If he accepts the Academy Award, they're going to show a clip of that.
They're going to show that meme that's out there. So, yeah, there are my two. There's my Clark Kent and there's my Peter Parker.
Oh, nice.
So, but like you said, I mean, he looks dumpy there, right? And then takes the glasses
pulls it off.
Yeah. It's funny too. Like he's he's like a physical actor as well. And there's, again, this is stuff that we covered when we talked about Superman, but he went through a lot of conscious effort to change his body posture, the way he walked. I mean, he went well beyond you even could imagine to present two very different characters. And I think that's kind of what you were speaking to. Like it is clear that these are two different characters, and it's more than just the glasses, right? The way his inflection and tone and everything else.
All right, you've got your two favorites up here. You've got the Christopher Reeve. You've got the Holland. Out of these two, not these two actors, but these two superheroes, Superman, Spider-Man, choose one that you have to be. Who is it?
Man, that's really hard. So I like, I would have to say, I'm going to say Spider-Man.
I'll even open it up to other superheroes. Is either one of these your favorites?
No,
and if
no,
not,
no.
who?
No, my favorite is Hulk by far. Like I still collect that comic out of I don't even know what number they're up to now. 600, 700, whatever it is. I'm only missing like 100 physical copies, and most of those are the early ones that are just out of reach for me financially, right? But it's always been the Hulk. And it was more so, not, you're going to get me on a tangent here, but more so when Peter David came in to start writing the Hulk during the 80s. He brought the multiple personality disorder and gave him a lot of different dimensions that he had never had before, and talked about the father issues and the anger issues. He really there was a lot of psychology that went into those issues that to this day still, he was laying a lot of groundwork, a lot of foundational stuff for the character of Bruce Banner and the Incredible Hulk itself. So, but yeah, I just like the psychological complexity of the Incredible Hulk. The thing I've always liked about Marvel, and I shouldn't say that because that's not it's not the case anymore. But yeah. But for somebody like
I know where you're going.
For Peter Parker, it seemed more grounded for me. It was grounded more in reality. There was real life consequences and stuff. And with Superman, the thing I do like about this, and I'll let you kind of speak to both here too, but the thing I like about Superman is that God complex. Like, it is so challenging, and I've heard so many different writers, even Peter David, who I just mentioned, he's had to deal with this when he was writing for Captain Marvel, not the female, but the when he was male, Marvel. When he was writing that's a godlike character that exists in the Marvel universe. And anybody that writes for the godlike characters find it really challenging. Like, how do you you can't throw a monster of the week at them, right? They're just going to tear through that. And so you've got to find different ways to approach it. And that's the complexity. I like that dynamic of these beings that are so supernatural that the normal stuff that we can relate to is not really a challenge for them. And so that's the aspect that I like of Superman more than probably anything else.
Wow. Yeah, for me, I think it's more of an evolution. When I was a kid, definitely Superman, watching Superman and the Incredible Score, as mentioned by JR, fantastic. Yeah. But I think as life kicks you, you start realizing that that's not something you can be. Right? You can't be Spider-Man, or Superman. Mm-hmm. You could conceivably be Spider-Man if you were smart enough and you were lucky enough. That could conceivably happen to you. I've always gravitated toward Iron Man because I always thought Tony Stark was somebody you could be. Yeah. If you were smart enough and you tried hard enough, you could be that character. And he had, to your point in the writing, he had real problems that people could relate to. He went through alcoholism. He went through different issues that I thought made that character more relatable. So I think it depends on where you are. It's interesting that you were able to hold on to Hulk your entire life, where for me, it was like, okay, I was Superman until I was 11. And then it was probably as a teen Spider-Man, and then as I matured, it was Iron Man, and it's been that way for probably the last 25 years.
Yeah, that's a great point. We'll get to that. I've got a similar story when we get to Captain America, because he's a character, not to spoil that, but he's a character that as a kid I didn't really care about that much. As I got older, there was a period in my life where it's always been Hulk. He's been the constant, but I was on a big Captain America hit there for a little bit, for probably a good run of about 6 or 7 years, where I was all in on Captain America, wanted to know everything about him, went back and read all the back issues and stuff. And then over time that kind of faded away, and I moved to another character that was kind of up in, front stage there along with the Hulk for a little while. So yeah, it's a good point. You do kind of go through these characters over life. Okay. Well, that was a 2-minute segment that turned into 20. So let's talk about Captain Kangaroo.
We could make this 20 seconds.
No, we're not going to make the. What I wanted. Look at this guy. Did you watch this show growing up?
Actually, I think it was a show that was noise, right? Like when you got up in the morning, you were getting ready for school. Captain Kangaroo was on. No one was really watching it. No one really cared, unless you heard that little freaking Bill Cosby music playing, and you knew there was going to be a picture pages. Other than that.
Time to get your crayons and your pencils.
I mean, honestly, look at Captain Kangaroo. The premise of the show would be considered a criminal act today. Like John Stossel would come out and start talking to the captain immediately.
Oh, no.
Right, have a seat. Let's talk a little bit. It's a nice haircut.
Nice. Yeah. Who did that? You? Yeah. So
what'd you bring with you? What's in those pockets?
Here, let me give you the reference and we'll break this down. So, what captain was Anorak talking about? Captain Kangaroo, Captain America, Captain Buck Rogers in the 25th century. This is Captain Kangaroo. He did a show from 1955 until 1984, so 29 seasons, a total of 6,090 episodes. That's amazing. And I think at the time when he ended the show, it was the longest running kids show. I don't know what surpassed that. I would assume something like Sesame Street at this point has probably surpassed that, since it had 20 years on Sesame Street, or at least 15 years on Sesame Street there. But this was created by Bob Keeshan, who we see here as Captain America, and Hugh Branham. The premise was basically a 30-minute morning show, children's variety show, had some educational stuff in there. They did songs. They did, you talked about Bill Cosby's picture pages that was in there. They had cartoons. There were some Muppets, like the Bunny and Mr. Moose. And it was kind of this show, along with and this is a kind of an 80s throwback here, but this show, along with Rocky and Bullwinkle and the Howdy Doody show, really were kind of like this is what the inspiration was for Pee-wee's Playhouse. And if you look at this show, there's a lot of things that Pee-wee took, or Paul Reubens took from this show. He definitely pulled a lot of stuff from every one of them, but Pee-wee's Playhouse, as we know it, has a lot of the stuff that we see in Captain Kangaroo. Now, I watched this show a whole lot. I really, really liked Captain Kangaroo when it came on for the picture pages piece of it. I always look forward to the Good Morning Captains because there were always people that were looking at the camera and saying, "Good morning, Captain. Good morning, Captain." And they went through a number of people that did this, famous celebrities and like that were at the time, at least, like in the '70s and even before that. I only watched this show though late '70s to like early '80s when we moved here to Texas around '83, maybe '80. No, I'm sorry, it was like about '82, I think. We moved up here. It was not showing here in Texas, but it was huge, much like Bozo the Clown. Which, don't get me wrong, Bozo the Clown was. I found it when I came down here, but because we were so close to the Chicago area with WGN, I mean, Bozo the Clown and Captain Kangaroo, I mean, those were your two staple shows that you watched as a kid. You could not escape them. Coming down here to Texas, this guy, probably for his looks alone, was not anywhere available on television.
No, he wasn't. Now, I remember watching the Bozo Hour all the time. That show was amazing. I loved it. But no Captain Kangaroo. I got a question for you, though, Albert. So, as he went through and he picked 3 captains out, right? So when he was trying to decipher the quatrain, he's like Captain Kangaroo, Captain America, Captain Buck Rogers. And so it makes sense, some of these captains that he picks. But Captain Kangaroo was an oddity to me because if I'm thinking of the 80s, right, I can think of a whole lot of other captains that would have popped in my head first. Like for sure, Captain Caveman would have jumped in my head first. Captain Jean-Luc Picard from Star Trek. Captain Troy from Battlestar Galactica. Captain N, the Game Master for the Nintendo NES cartoon. Captain Hawkeye Pierce from MASH. And Captain Clarence Over from Airplane. I would have picked all of those first. Even the dude from Airplane. Joey, have you ever been to a Turkish prison?
You ever seen a grown man naked?
Joey, do you ever hang around the gymnasium? Do you like movies about gladiators?
Yes. That's a great Captain reference. It's funny you say that. Hold that thought because I have something for you here in just a few minutes. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right. So this is Captain America. This is Captain Kangaroo.
Know it?
To some, this was Captain America. All right. Here are some of the other things. So there's the ping pong ball thing. I loved that as a kid. So the Moose would tell a joke. Mr. Moose would tell a joke, and he would always try to get Captain Kangaroo to answer the joke. And whenever he did, they'd drop like they'd say it was 1,000 or 100 ping pong balls or whatever it was. And they were supposed to be golf balls, I think, but they were just ping pong balls. Anyways, that was a running gag. You remember Sweet Pickles here in the middle? The books?
Yeah.
Because you used to sing the song.
Know how kids' minds grow. Sweet Pickles.
Thank you. I knew you used to sing the song all the time. Like, he's the only person that I know that could sing the song on key that wasn't on key, by the way, but
no,
in your prime, you could nail that song all day long.
And I still use that reference, although it dates me at the office. I was telling the kids, I'm like, I'm at the office and I've got some of my employees and I'm like, all right, man, you guys are going to load up the Sweet Pickles bus and we're going to roll out of here. And they're like,
no one knows the hell you're talking about. Yeah. So that's a deep cut. If they rolled around in a bus, it was kind of a creepy bus too. But there's here's picture pages with Bill Cosby, which I've got another picture. We'll come back to that here in just one second. There's Radar from MASH. He actually is one of the people that did the Good Morning Captain things. Spock was in there. William Shatner did it as well. Spock, Leonard Nimoy, Captain Kirk did it. I'm trying to think. There was a lot of Bob Newhart people because that show was really popular, obviously in the '70s. But anyways, and there was just all kinds of other people that would come on and say Good Morning Captain. Do you remember Slim Goodbody there in the middle?
Of course I do. Wasn't somebody in high school go to a party dressed as Mr. Goodbody?
I don't know. I don't think it's legal anymore, but
yeah, I don't think you can do it. But yeah, that was that's something you're not going to see on TV today.
No, nope.
For sure.
But I enjoyed this. Like, it was very educational. Now I look at it and it's just like, it's kind of creepy looking, but whatever.
Yeah, you don't want to say the guy on TV taught me about male anatomy. It's gonna get your parents concerned.
They usually stayed above the waistline when he was showing parts, so I think they at least kept it to that. I don't think he ever said, "Look,
you can find a full body shot of him somewhere."
I know, but I'm saying, like, he never went on and said, "Look, kids, genitalia." He never came out and did that piece of the show.
I don't know, man. You just said there were 6,000 episodes. You haven't seen them all.
That's very true. I haven't seen them all. Here's do you remember when you could order this? This is like me and Cynthia, my sister, we like begged mom to mail offer this, or I don't remember how it came on. We had to mail offer it for in some way because I don't think you could just go pick this up at the store. You had to mail off for it, but you could get your own pen that would write, and every time you drew a line, it would make the little sound effects as you wrote all over the place. And we never got this, but I did.
I thought this was a little later. So when he was like after he went a pinwheel or whatever show picture pages moved to? Because it moved to a couple, right? Where
Yes,
clips
Pinwheel,
of it
I think,
shown
is where it
on
moved to.
another fantastic. I'm surprised there's no Pinwheel reference in Ready Player One.
Nope.
That was phenomenal.
Well, and there's like no the whole Nickelodeon thing. Like for the most part, I can't think there's much in there for in Ready Player One. So like Pinwheel, you can't do that on television.
Oh, no slime reference either.
No slime references.
It's a very good call. You know what? You should do a bonus episode. We just talk about greatest omissions in RPO, where pop culture references that should have been in there. Listeners can throw stuff out there for us.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a lot of it. And what were we talking about? I think we were talking about this last show, weren't we? About how he really couldn't get everything in, but he was able to get some of the stuff that did make it into the novel, into the movie. And
right.
My hope is that we'll see some of that, even some of the more stuff that we didn't get in either one of those in Ready Player 2, should he go back to the 80s and all that. So here is Captain America. We'll talk about him. So Captain America is created by Joe Sim and Jack Kirby. First appeared in Captain America Comics #1, which I didn't put up here. I didn't put that comic. I meant to do that. All right. The premise as a recipient of the super soldier serum during World War II, Captain Steve Rogers became the Nazi-fighting super soldier Captain America, only to be suspended in animation after being trapped in ice. When he is found and rescued decades later and fully preserved, he finds himself a hero once again, but a stranger in a strange land. I wrote that, by the way. His powers, let's see. He had superhuman reflexes and senses. He's kind of this well-renowned, like his ultimate power, and Stan Lee talks about this, is like his biggest power is just leadership, which is not a really, exciting power to have. But you think about throughout all of his history in Marvel Comics, and we see this in the movie, there isn't a character in Marvel, like the good guys anyways, that wouldn't die on a sword for this guy, right? Or go fight a battle for him because of what he stands for, and his general battle tactics and knowledge and all that. So, and then of course he's equipped with the vibranium shield that he uses, that he blocks bolts with and throws it around and ricochets it off different things. All of this stuff these are character traits that have been with Captain America ever since the beginning. And I've got a couple different Captain Americas here, but before we get into that, I mean, what's your experience with Captain America? Is this? It feels like this. Everybody goes through, and maybe I may be completely painting this wrong, but it feels like everybody goes through a phase where they get latched on to Captain America, like, oh yes, he's awesome, I really like this guy, and probably more people stick with him these days than ever before. But I can tell you, during all the way up through the '90s, especially when I was a huge Captain America fan, it was hard to find anybody that was a Captain America fan. Everybody was like, oh yeah, I kind of like him, but no one was like, Captain America, that's my boy. I went and bought a sticker. I slapped it on the back of my vehicle. I can tell you to this day, that vehicle is floating around in San Marcos. I don't own it anymore, but every once in a while when I go down there, that sticker, I still see it. It's at the outlet mall. So I don't know why I brought that up. But anyways, what's your level of love or disinterest or interest with Captain America?
Well, I think the interest arc in Captain America ironically follows the interest arc of the New England Patriots. Like, you couldn't find a New England Patriot fan in 1981. They won Super Bowl. They're coming out the woodwork. They're here in Texas somehow, right? They're all over the place, just jumping on the bandwagon. Same concept, similar to what we talked about earlier when we were talking about, how much I like Iron Man. I think it's the same for Captain America. He becomes relatable in that him, Batman, Tony Stark are just in a position where they're not truly superheroes, but the value that they bring to the team is something other than that superhuman ability. And it's funny that you talk about leadership, because I do think that it's an underrated quality in any team.
Yeah.
Right. Both of us have worked in very technical career fields, right? And it's often in our roles not about being the smartest person in the room. Just like for a superhero, it's not about being the strongest guy in the room. It's about being able to get people who have a diverse skill set, a group of people from different backgrounds who just happen to be the smartest and strongest people in the room, working toward one goal. And you see that a lot, especially in the films and throughout the comic books. That's the value he brings when he's with the Avengers. It's not so much there's a big difference between being someone who is a chess piece versus the person who's playing chess. And it always feels like Captain America is playing chess with the rest of the team.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And I 100% agree. Yeah, it's Yeah, you're right. It's an underrated quality, and it's probably one of the more crucial qualities to have in putting together a team. You think about the Avengers, and the movie comes to the forefront of the mind because they're so popular and they're so well done that you think about it. He is kind of the glue that kind of keeps them together, especially there at the very end when it culminates in the final
Mhm.
two Avengers Endgame and or was it Infinity War?
Mhm.
But anyways, yeah, all of that it definitely kind of factors in there.
And
Um,
I do think even in the real world, that is, I am one, and I've been criticized for it in the past. Leadership is a quality that cannot be trained. You can't go to school for leadership. You can hone your leadership abilities, but that's the difference between leadership and management. It's an innate quality. You either have it or you don't, right? And that's Captain America has always just exuded leadership. There's no doubt that he's the leader of the team, even though my boy Tony likes bucking against it most of the time.
yeah, that's kind of been his mo. What if you had to pick? And this is probably not it's not a fair question, but
It's not a fair
if you had to
question.
pick one of these fine actors as your favorite Captain America, who would it be?
Yeah, there's only
So I've got
come
Dick
on,
Purcell. I got Dick Purcell on the far
come
left
on.
there from 1944. I've watched this movie. It's not that bad. It's not Captain America, but it's not that bad. You've got Reb Brown from 1979 there, who is the Captain
Mm.
America that I remember because when this Captain America came out, you would go into the store and they did Captain America everything. And I think I've got a picture. I do have a picture of one thing here in just a second, but they had like Captain America diecast cars
Mhm.
and helicopters and boats, and it was just the logo emblazoned on anything they could put it on. But this was the Captain America, and this color scheme and the look is what I remember going in and seeing.
Yeah, so this is the Captain America I grew up with also, right? Obviously,
Yeah.
right? But I remember him most because they had a toy that had a motorcycle, and then
Yes.
he was like
It
this, but
was.
he didn't move. And
Yep.
then you put that little thing with all the teeth, you shoved it, and you pulled it,
Yep.
and a motorcycle flew across the room. It
Yeah.
was this guy in this outfit, as I recall.
Yeah, it was, and it was kind of like the Evil Knievel things without the
Yeah.
added cost of the crank. So it was just a pull, it was a rip kind of
Yep.
thing to let him go. Then I've got Matt Salinger who played Captain America in the 1990 film, which is really cheesy, really corny, over the top. It's a canon film. I've mentioned that a few times on the show. I'm telling you, we've got to do something on canon films because it is a riot to talk about. But this, he actually does a pretty good job. Like and it's really bad. It's badly done. I'll say that. But it's the first time that Captain America was doing things that you saw in the comic book differently than, or different, better maybe than these
Mhm.
two Jokers over here. And then of course we've got, you know, Chris Evans as Captain America, who is, I know
Who is Captain America?
he nailed
Yeah.
it. I mean, yeah, I mean, there's
Yeah.
nothing, I mean, there's no contest. And you think about all the work that he does for going around to different, hospitals and meeting with sick and,
Mhm.
dying children and all that stuff. And Tony Stark as well,
Yeah.
the work that they
Yeah,
do, the charity work is amazing.
Evans turned the role down 3 times before he accepted. Did
That's
not
crazy
want
to
it.
think about that. Yeah, but he is the quintessential Captain America in my book. Here are just some
Yeah, and
things
not
that
for bad reasons. Interestingly, he turned it down for reasons you would think Captain America would turn down an endorsement deal.
mm,
He just didn't. He just knew the responsibility that it would take to to assume that role, and he wasn't sure that he was willing to make the life commitment to do it.
yeah, and that's
Glad
exactly
he
right. It is a life commitment. I mean, it's like the Star Wars characters. You get in and you're that's it. You've signed up the rest of your life. You're probably going to always be known. You may go on to do other things and great things, but you will forever be known as Captain America, right?
Mhm.
Here are a couple other things here. There's the Captain America. That's him in one of the many '80s TV shows. I've got the arcade game there, which I think we played when we were out at
Yeah.
what is it? Not Midnight Rodeo. That's the dance club down in San Antonio.
Wow.
What was it? Wild Stallions. No, what was the name of the arcade? Galloping Ghosts
Galloping
up in
Ghost.
Chicago. We played that. There's the Super Nintendo version. I've got the NES cart here. You probably know more about this than I do, but is that the
Mhm.
same game that they just ported over?
Oh no, 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 no! That
Oh
game is
no,
terrible, sir.
is it?
It's not very. It's not good.
Okay,
No, that's not
I'll
a good
take your
game.
word for it.
Still expensive, but
Yeah.
but
Yeah, there's a
mainly
Lego.
once it became a Marvel game, I mean, a Marvel movie started coming out, and Captain America, this game's value shot up ridiculously. There was one Christmas where it was close to the $500-$600 range. It's gone
What?
back down since it.
What
Yeah.
does it go for these days? Any idea?
I haven't I haven't looked at that game in a while. I can tell you.
All right, look that up if you don't mind. Down there in the bottom is what I was talking about. It was hard to find these little die-cast like pictures of them to show them, but again, any vehicle that you can think of, they just slap the Captain America logo and a picture of him on there. That as a kid, that was certainly entertaining. And then we got an Avengers Lego there. So all that to say that he's been on a lot of stuff. What's the cost go for?
The cart about $35. So
okay, so it's come down considerably then from $500.
Yeah, but if you're like complete in box, I mean, you're still looking at like $150, $200.
Yeah, but he is America, right? I mean, that's the thing about him. He is America. He feels like that is, anyways. Here, well, let me clarify. He is what we aspire to be, right? Maybe not
a white male.
No, white male. No, I just mean like his symbolism and what he stands for, and that's why I think Chris Evans does a really good job of that. Just kind of he's the one that can hold Mjolnir and all that. Right, that's all part of it. He's just kind of like this pure presence, if you will.
Yeah,
as a character.
It was the America we were promised.
Yeah,
those were the Americans we were supposed to be.
Speaking of all Americans. This is the last reference here is Captain Buck Rogers in the 25th century. So this is a TV show that ran from 1979 1981. Now, time out. So Buck Rogers has been around forever. There are a number of other series and everything else, and I didn't even try to focus on any of that because for me, for me, this is the Buck Rogers that Ernie Klein is very likely referencing. I'm sure
100%. There's no way he's not.
Right. That's in disclosure. I get it. There are other Buck Rogers out there. We ain't going to talk about him. We're talking about this guy right here. But this was a show that was developed by Glenn Larson, who we've spoken about many times in this show already because he did things like Battlestar Galactica, Knight Rider, Magnum P.I., The Fall Guy, Manimal. You ever watch Manimal? Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
We haven't had a chance to talk about that on the show, but Manimal is another one. And then Leslie Stevens, who is one of the other ones. And this is based on a character that came out in a novel from like the 1920s, right? There was a novella called Armageddon 2049 or 2019 or something like that. And that's where this character, Buck Rogers, came from. And it appeared in Amazing Stories magazine, which a lot of stuff it's shocking to see how many stories were pulled from Amazing Stories back then and now today have been redone or there's a new spin on them in some ways. But this show came out with a made-for-TV movie, which I didn't realize it was actually a movie because I think I watched it as it was on TV and just chopped up, right? I never saw it in the theaters as though, kind of like with Battlestar Galactica, they had just did that. And that was released in the theaters, never saw it in the theaters. But this one definitely was. And you got to think, I mean, this was really, here we go with Star Wars again, but they were writing the popularity of Star Wars. I mean, it was anything you could get that had to do with that was centrally based in space in some way was hot like fire at the time. And so they were quick to get this show out, even though they were just coming off Battlestar Galactica at the time. Did you watch this show growing up?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you almost had to. It was Battlestar Galactica, which didn't last very long. I mean, I think people forget that Battlestar Galactica wasn't on very long on the TV. And then it rolled right into Buck Rogers. But they were being produced about the same time. So this Buck Rogers has my favorite starfighter in it. The starfighters in Buck Rogers are phenomenal. In fact, this was supposed to be the design for the original Viper that was going to be carried in Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
So love that part of the show. We'll talk about things I absolutely do not like about Buck Rogers. I did not like at the time, but absolutely, I watched it every week.
Yeah. No, me too. And the premise is very similar to Captain America, right? You've got a character who was living in his own time, suddenly was teleported. Right? Instead of going back, this guy goes into the future, and he's living this life of like a stranger in a strange land, trying to find himself. So a lot of similarities there between the characters, and that's probably where the similarities stop.
Yeah, riddle me this though, before we start getting into the pop. Think about the premise of this show.
Yeah,
this dude's frozen in year 1987. 500 years later, he's thawed out. This captain from 1987. All right, it's 2020. Imagine that we thawed out a dude from 1520. Right?
Yeah.
What use is this dude gonna be to us? Right?
Nothing.
Here's what I do know. He's gonna be racist, right out of the gate. Like right out of the gate, that dude's gonna have social issues like immediately. Then there's gonna be a whole myriad of issues that follow behind him. He would probably have a stroke just trying to figure. He would think everyone was a demon or a warlock. He would be burning women at stakes. He'd be slapping women all over the place. Like you couldn't.
Yeah,
I don't know that you could go 500 years in the future and be productive. Buck Rogers is thought out after 500 years and becomes the man.
He slips right into the system and works his way to the top. Yeah.
Dude, you take someone from 80 years, dude, your grandparents can barely function in today's society, and they're still alive, some of them. Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the idea
They're
that
out
you
there
go
driving
500 years
still.
back, is bonkers to me. All right, let's get on with it. Let's see some skirts.
Let's see some skirts. There's a lot of skirt, and I wasn't going to show all of it because there's so much of it. I mean, it was almost it was almost like an exploitation of the women on the show. It feels like at times. But this show obviously starred Gail Gerard as Captain Buck Rogers, Erin Gray, the beautiful Erin Gray. I thought she was amazing.
Yeah, she's amazing.
And then it had Eric Server as Dr. Theopolis, who was Theo. And then you had Mel Blanc, or Blank, I guess is how he pronounces his name, Mel Blanc, infamous Mel Blanc, who's done Duck Dodgers in the 25th and a half century. He ends up doing the voice of Twinkie during season 1. So here's just some pictures. On the left-hand side here, you can see that's the couple in season 1. The picture on the right is them in season 2. In season 2 is where I have a lot of the problems, like as a kid.
Yeah, I think you're right. So think about this. Hey, look, I'm going to do you a favor and bring up Star Wars myself so you don't have to do it again.
All right, thank you.
But like Star Wars costumes are iconic. They are timeless, right? They do not point to a specific time or era. And if they do, it's to the swashbuckler era of early film, right? And even then, maybe just Han, right? If you look at this, it is clear the producers thought that in 1987, disco was still king, right? There is a lot of spandex. There's flared pants. There's wide collars. They are clearly even the music selection in the movie is, if you've seen it recently, is just disturbing.
It's questionable. Yeah.
Right. But they're clearly going for a certain era. And I think, and maybe you can expound on this, I really think it affected the time. How do you want it? What's the word? The timeliness of this show, like its universality. Like we can't relate to it today because it's clearly rooted in the 70s where Star Wars doesn't feel like anything.
Yeah, it's the question of does it hold up today, right? Is it still feel relevant? And sometimes you can look past the costumes and the sounds and the music and all that, so long as the messages behind them are still sound. You know what I mean? Like those kind of transcend generations or transcend some of the superficial on the surface kind of things. I can't say that about the show, and that's not a slight at the show at all. But the costumes are just so blaringly in your face. I mean, it's like screams 60s, 70s disco, or not 60s disco because there's no such thing, but definitely 70s disco era. There's heavy doses of it throughout all of the series as well. Here's just a couple of quick things here. I mean, there's the ship you talked about. I always loved the helmets because they did remind me of Star Wars helmets. I think they did a good job of playing to the hearts of people that were into Star Wars. A prime example of that is Twinkie, not Twinkie. I called him Twinkie as a kid, and I still do these days, but it's Twinkie as a kid. Dr. Theo there. The beady 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 thing was always hilarious.
I've also been told that once you recognize that Twinkies' head is the shape of a male organ, you'll never unsee it again.
Oh, why did you have to say that? I don't see that. See, I see.
Really?
No, I see Johnny.
You should see a doctor immediately.
Was it Johnny and his Sako Robot, the Japanese show? That's what I see because that was the inspiration from it, and that was a show that, as a kid growing up, was on TNT or TBS, I think. And so I did catch some episodes of that when cable was out, but that was the inspiration.
So what was weird for me with Twinkie is he would often make like Jewish expressions and stuff, or he'd make like very 70s era, right? He was the only person that did it. And yeah, to me, it just further dated the show, but part of me wanted to believe that he just programmed himself to do that to make Buck Rogers feel like he was at home.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was. He's a very sincere and thoughtful robot. Or he was a quad. What was he called? A quadnum or something like that? Or
I'd be lying.
Ambiquad. That's what it was. He was an ambiquad. And then he always had that phrase of, the only phrase I really remember him saying was, "What's up, Buck?" which was "What's up, Doc?" That was the same thing. It was just "What's up, Buck?" All right. The other things that stood out, the Hawk from season 2, which is on the far right hand side here. I liked him as a kid, and even though I didn't like the series, I always looked forward to him as a kid because I thought he just looked cool. And that was really all that the only redeeming value of season 2. And down below there was the Gary Coleman from that was the Cosmic Whiz episode or the Cosmic Whiz Kid episode that came out, and that was a huge deal because Different Strokes was kind of peaking at the time. It had already been out for about a year and a half, I think, at that point. And they brought Gary Coleman in. He was playing this president. And there's a whole story that we're not getting into just because we're short on time. But it stood out for me because I was a huge, Different Strokes fan at the time. Any final thoughts here on Buck Rogers? I mean, just to sum it up, season 1 was fun. I freaking loved it as a kid. I still think it does well. Like, it's actually enjoyable to watch. The first episode is kind of rough to get through, but as they introduce more of the characters and all that, it does get better. I really like season 1. Season 2 was such a departure. Like they left everything that was working for season 1 behind, literally, and sent them off into space. And they were on this kind of Star Trek quest voyage type thing, right? Just patrolling the galaxy. But I guess for you, any final thoughts on season 1, season 2, or just Buck Rogers in general?
I think it's campy, good fun. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I mean, I think the Starfighter battles were great. Hawk's costume was amazing. Overall, I don't have any animosity toward this show. I'd watch it if it's on. I'll watch it.
Yeah, me too. Hey, look at this.
You have brought the captains.
I brought a number of captains. So I want you to just if you can you name all these? Let's go from left to right at the top there. You've got some of these already talked about. In fact, you mentioned.
Yeah, we did. So Captain Kangaroo, Captain America, Captain Buck Rogers, Captain Jack Sparrow. Captain Skyhawk.
Yes.
I can't see the basement logos there. Is that Captain? I can't see it.
Let me turn the basement logo off.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
All right.
I don't think I'm going to get it anyway. Captain Commando. Oh, Captain Commando. Oh, right. Yep. Captain Tennille.
That's right.
Captain Planet. Captain Crunch. Captain In. I do not
This is
know
a deep Albert cut right here.
That I don't know what that is.
That is, so you remember SeaWorld, right? We lived like 2 minutes away from it.
Yeah.
SeaWorld in Texas. So one of the characters that I played when I worked at SeaWorld, one of the costume characters that I played was a character named Cap and Kids. So Cap and Kids. This is the captain. Mm-hmm. He was a character that was developed for SeaWorld, and they ditched him after like 95 or something. He hasn't really been back. They only keep a certain number of characters there.
Nice.
So deep cut. Yeah.
That is a deep cut. Well, points for you, sir.
What about?
What is it? Is it Captain? What's this? Oh, it's escaping me. Captain Underoos.
Yeah, Captain Underpants. Captain Underoos. That was the one. Yeah. That was the version in the 80s. This is Captain Underpants. Captain Tantaras. All right, bottom left-hand corner. What do you got?
Okay, these are getting harder. So obviously, Captain Caveman, Captain James T. Kirk. That is. I don't know.
Captain Quint from Jaws.
Oh, Captain Quint.
Farewell and adieu. This is an 80s deep cut.
Is this from Overboard?
No, it's not.
I don't know.
Captain Ron.
Captain Ron, the movie. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good.
And this cup is full of the next one.
Captain
Seriously.
Morgan.
I am Captain Morgan right now. And then Captain Stubing over there.
Captain Stubing. From the Love Boat. All right. Well done. You did a great job on that one.
Captain Quint. I should have got that one.
Yeah. Here we go. Revenge of the Nerds. So we did talk about Revenge of the Nerds. We covered this in episode 6, part 3, but here's the reference. And then I want Will, you can just have at it, man. I know you got a lot to talk about. Obviously, you dressed the part for tonight. Yes. But the reference is, at first, I thought the Neglected Dwelling might be a reference to Revenge of the Nerds, one of Halliday's favorite films. In that movie, the nerds of the title rent a dilapidated house and fix it up during an classic 80s music montage. I visited the recreation of the Revenge of the Nerds house on planet Skolnick and spent a day searching it, but it proved to be a dead end. And Skolnick is obviously a reference to the main character, Skolnick, his last name. But again, we did cover this. I mean, the premise on IMDb says, at Adams College, a group of bullied outcasts and misfits resolve a fight Misfits resolve to fight back for the peace and self-respect. And I guess that's certainly the movie. There's a lot to it. But what do you got here? I mean, what are some of your favorite moments with Nerds? And this is animated, by the way. So you got
nicely done. Look, we're stepping up the tech here on the show.
We
so
are.
Everything with Takashi in it is fantastic.
I know. I couldn't find a Takashi him saying about the pie, but anyway.
You got I drink to that.
I drink to that.
So I'm not going to get into all the facts and trivia and all the stuff that I would love to get into, or do 50 movie quotes, which I would also love to do. Right. I think instead I'm just going to talk about the movie in the general sense. I know for a lot of people, this movie is just a campy summer fun kind of movie about, it's like the typical kind of ski school films that you would see. But for me, it was far more influential to me because as somebody who was not a cool kid, it was the first, in my recollection, movie that made it acceptable to be different, that there was something powerful about being different, that you didn't have to conform, that you didn't have to be an athlete, because Lord knows I wasn't ever going to be, right? Like I was never going to be an athlete in high school, right? Or I wasn't going to be, or in middle school growing up, probably when we were watching this film. So for me, this was a really important part of my development. And the first time it was kind of like, you can find other like-minded people like you. This is not the only way to have fun, like this traditional way. So for me, this is, I dare say, the most influential film as it relates to my self-confidence of anything I saw growing up.
Oh, no, that's awesome. And I would agree. Like and this was the beginning. There were a number of other movies that happened, a number of them, which we've covered in these episodes so far, that were of a similar vein, where you had these nerds that were proving to be more than just a stereotypical, kick in the pants, slap a sticker on their back thing that, the character of like Eugene from Grease, right? That's right. That's what nerdom was. And that's how people perceived it. And here with the advent of like computer technology and stuff, this really empowered them to be more and become the people that were going to run corporations later on, right? And turn into more than what they were able to do because of just the technology and how they found outlet in those technologies.
Huge cult following. They're even talking about doing another reboot of this. Not another reboot, doing a sequel with the original cast.
Oh, wow. That would be something.
It'd be the fifth one if I were keeping score at home, I believe.
Yeah, I think we briefly talked about all the sequels, and I think I saw the second one and maybe the third or fourth, like when it was, I think those went straight to video. So I didn't watch them when they went straight to video, which used to be a thing. But I think I picked them up later on HBO or whatever. But I guess the only other thing I was going to say is that race, by the way. I mean, I crack up every single time, especially when the music comes on. They start playing the Japanese music. Awesome. It is just hilarious. Like, I cannot stop laughing. Yeah, that's a great movie. All right, we're going to move on. Let's talk about this little reference. I don't know how much time we'll spend on this one. Well, we're going to have to spend a little bit of time. But so this is as he's trying to decipher the quatrain. He says, or did that line mean blow the whistle in the colloquial sense, as to reveal a secret or alert someone to a crime? Either way, it didn't make any sense to me. But I continued to go over it, each line, word by word, until my brain began to feel like Aquafresh toothpaste. So Aquafresh toothpaste is a product that was created in 1979. It is around to this day. Do you use Aquafresh? Before I just quickly,
no,
don't subscribe to this. All right, that's fine.
Yep.
It's owned by GlaxoSmithKline, who's like this mega corporation that owns a lot of products that we don't ever. It's kind of like a Procter and Gamble. They own just about everything. Yep. And the question he says is, my brain felt like Aquafresh toothpaste, and I didn't know, like, so does that mean his brain was mushy? Did it mean that it was minty? Did it mean like he was just done? I don't. Any thoughts around what the heck was it? 2 stripes, 3 stripes?
It didn't make any sense to me. I mean, Ernest Cline was just trying to squeeze that pop culture reference in there somewhere.
Oh, nice! No, I like what you said. I see what you did there. So this is Aquafresh. Okay, so I can tell you with all honesty that when this came out, they did an amazing job of marketing, because Aquafresh toothpaste commercials were all over the place and you couldn't escape them. And their niche, or the way they try to get you, was, and what I've got up here on the screen right now, I've got a picture On the left-hand side, that is the original box. There were only two colors. It was like the white and blue and the white and green, which was, it says New Mint. That was the first introduction. They actually didn't introduce the red until like, I don't know, they introduced that third stripe like in 80, 81 or something. And that was a whole nother big deal because you would get this toothpaste that had like
game changer.
It was absolutely a game changer. And the way they marketed this though is, so on the left-hand side, you had for the original product, they said this was a cavity-fighting fluoride of the leading paste, which I think at the time was Colgate. And the other stripe was all of the breath freshener that you got from the leading gel, which I think was Close-Up. Which Close-Up, I don't know.
Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, I don't think anybody uses, but that was huge too, right? The whole jingle.
I used Close-Up back in the day because it tasted the best.
Yes, and that's exactly right. And so they were trying to come at this and say, okay, we'll take the best of both worlds and put this in. And then what they ended up doing with the third stripes, now you got fights cavities, the green freshens breath, the red is even clean stained film, which I actually don't even know what that means. But I guess film, not literally film, but film on your teeth.
The parent company's actually run sideways about 3-4 times in the last 30 years. You know, Aquafresh back in the day, we didn't use. Did you use this?
So Albert? We did. Mom and Dad bought this and like, because of the marketing alone. Well, you know my mom.
So this was the only toothpaste on the shelf that I recall did not have the ADA seal of approval. To this day, it doesn't have the American Dental Association approval, right? Which is an FDA approval that includes that it was certified and independently tested by third parties to validate the claims that they make in their advertising. So for those reasons, I'm against it. But in fact, as late as 4 years ago, they were sued by Colgate for claims they were making in their marketing campaign, saying that they were anti-acid and anti-sugar protection for a 24-hour period. Colgate tested it, said, dude, no, you don't do any of that.
Yes.
And they ended up having to pull all of those advertisements.
It's funny because they do those things and it's almost like and I see why Colgate would push back because it's almost an implication that they do it, right? And they don't want to be in that position. So they do go fight this, even though they don't have to, they will, because you know, they don't want that negative press or the bad press there in that way.
Yep.
So yeah, Colgate, Aquafresh toothpaste. This is new. Like I went out in line, I thought, okay, I wonder if you can buy this still. You can buy a bottle, a bottle of vintage. It says vintage fluoride Aquafresh toothpaste for $12.99. Would you use this?
What does old toothpaste do? Does it work?
Oh no.
Well, apparently, according to the ADA, that stuff didn't work when it was new. So
it ain't gonna hold. It hasn't held up here in almost 40 years. But yeah, you can still go buy this. I don't know. And I don't have it on the screen here, but this person that's selling this bottle of Aquafresh toothpaste from like 1980 is selling it for $12.99. It is a buy it now, which is nice. And shipping is $5.65. There is a disclaimer on there if you go look it up that says that they use at your own risk kind of thing. So at least they've thought this through a little bit.
Well, don't get this if you care about your dental health, right? Only because the active ingredient in toothpaste, which is fluoride for all major toothpaste, does degrade over time. So this
like
is
diminishing returns
effective.
Kind of thing.
Oh yeah, it's just not gonna. It's
not
gonna
you mean
help
it degrades?
that.
Yeah, I see where you're.
Yeah, just the active
potent.
ingredient. Yeah, the efficacy of the fluoride would no longer support teeth whitening or cleaning or fresh breath or all the other illicit claims they've been sued for.
You're a doctor for a reason.
I'm not that kind of doctor.
Okay. So the next line, and I'll need your help on this one because I was able to put 2 and 2 together for 3 of these references, but one of them still escapes me. And it might be just because there's not really that much there and I'm overthinking it. But the next reference says, I'd also received invitations to join 4 of the biggest Gunter clans, the Oviraptors, Clan Destiny, the Keymasters, and Team Bonsai. I told each of them thanks, but no thanks. So what I've got up on the screen now, I'm showing a picture of an Oviraptor with an egg, which is significant. I've got a picture of the Keymaster himself from Ghostbusters. You want to get a line in there? Or,
yeah, we could do it later.
Come back to my place. And then I've got obviously Buckaroo Banzai from the movie, which we'll talk about in great detail here when we get to chapter 18, because that's where it plays a more significant role. But that's where I think that's obviously where the references for Team Bonsai, Keymasters. The Oviraptors, though, was kind of an interesting cut, like a deep cut. It's not just that it's a raptor, but these particular type of dinosaurs would use that thing you see on their head to smash open and break open eggs, which is significant given Ready Player One and The Hunt and Easter eggs and all that. So super awesome that Ernie Klein went to that depth of thinking in order to kind of just put a very casual reference in here that actually has some significant meaning to it. But the one that escapes me is just Clandestiny. Like, I don't know if that was, I don't know, maybe I'm just missing it, or I've spent too much time too close to it, but I couldn't think of a way to tie that back to any kind of an 80s reference or anything else.
No, I mean, you could, and I'm sure you did, like, just like me when I saw it on the show notes, and I'm like, okay. So even like clearly Overraptors and Keymasters are two clear references to these movies. And then, of course, Keymasters back to just the RPO overall, right? The Bonsai one, I was like, okay, now we're on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being most likely to be a connection. Overraptors and Keymasters are, I would say, between an 8 and 9, 5, 10.
Yep,
They're all the way over there. Buckaroo Banzai to me was about a 6.5 to a 7.
Right.
It could be any number of references. It could be Karate Kid references. It could be references to 16 Candles. When the Banzai was said a bunch of times in a bunch of movies. So it could have been, it was just really popular. There were even shirts that said Banzai that were popular in the 80s. But Buckaroo Banzai, I'll buy that. I'll put it at a 6.5, you know. And any idea I could come up with Team Destiny would have been like a 1.
Yeah.
You would have had like a bunch of, it would have, don't get me wrong, between the two of us, we can make connections between just about any two subjects.
Oh yeah, we'll tie it together somehow. But yeah, it just, I don't know. I'm probably kicking myself for not thinking of it. But if anybody's listening to the show and knows what he could possibly reference in there, there's something that we're not seeing. But Clandestiny is the one that escaped me. So very cool names for that. Okay, let's move on. And this is, again, it's a super light reference, and I don't want to spend all day on this at all. But he mentions that he was going to go in and record, and I don't have the direct quote because it was that light of a reference, but he just mentions he's going to go in there and he would record it. He would throw it up on YouTube. So it was kind of you think about when the novel was written and where YouTube was at the time, and it was kind of really peaking, but great foresight into see where we are, you know, for him to know that YouTube would just continue to grow into the juggernaut that it is today. I've got all the logos up here, and I was going to get into the history, which I really, honestly, given time and all that, I don't want to do. The logo really hasn't changed that much if you look at it. But what do you use YouTube for these days? Like, I know they have like YouTube Red and do the movies, and I used to be 100% Google person, Android person, and I made the switch about 6 years ago. And like, Google is so weird. Like, I'm so outside of what I use it for this show. I don't really go and do much with Google, period, these days. And it feels very foreign and alien to me. And I can't believe I'm even saying that because it's very hard given just how big its presence is. But I try to stay away from all of the Google stuff because I've got this whole ecosystem. But today, what are you using Google for? Or are you Google and maybe even YouTube? Do you do are you subscribed to their channel stuff?
Yeah, I'm Google. I'm fully integrated in Google, but you know, I'm a Samsung user. Boop. This is the Note 20 Ultra. Boom. Beautiful.
You put that up there and they gave me a bunch of feedback. So careful with that.
I know that was weird, wasn't it? Throw that. What are you doing?
I don't know. What's that phone doing?
What has Samsung got going on in here? I'll throw that thing over there. It's probably going to explode.
It is.
Hey, don't sue me. Don't sue me. That was a 7. In fact, they named this one the 20 so that it felt like it was 13 iterations ago and not 3.
Nice.
Yeah. So YouTube for me, I think, is the best time killer ever created. So typically, if I'm traveling, I might end up watching. I might get interested in a topic, some random topic like the life cycle of a guinea pig, and then 17 hours later and 4 million videos later, I now know everything anyone would ever need to know about a guinea pig.
Yeah.
Thank you, YouTube, for that.
Yes. It is like it's kind of like the Matrix, right? Where he's jacking in, they're just putting in tapes and he's just loading up on stuff. I mean, there have been many a nights. And I will say this, I do use YouTube a lot for research in this show, and it is easy to go down a rabbit hole. Next thing you know, you're like, what did I just watch? And why am I watching it? And why is it 4 a.m.? And I've got to be at work in 2 hours. And the one thing I will say about YouTube, though, and this is, I have no shame in saying this. When it came out, I remember having a conversation with one of my friends. I think he's a mutual of ours, Carlos, down in San Marcos. And we were talking about YouTube, and this is because I was working at down there with him at the time that it launched. I was really skeptical that this would ever take off. Like, who would want to watch videos of people uploading their personal diatribes or video, whatever they were, personal diaries and all
Mhm.
that. I didn't see the vision of where where they were wanting to go, and maybe they didn't see it either, right? If you think about
Right.
the history of it, they were just trying to get. I think it was going to be used like an online dating service at one point, and they were paying people to upload videos, and it was really more of a convenience thing for them to be able to have a central place to go in and find videos. But it's turned into so much more, and to our benefit as well. And the last thing I'll say about this is a lot of the movies that we cover on this show, a lot of the TV shows that we cover, a lot of the pop culture stuff, go out to YouTube. It's surprising how many of these things you can't rent, you can purchase, you can't go out and get them on streaming services. But
Mhm.
for whatever reason, someone's uploaded the whole damn movie to YouTube, and you can watch the entire thing free of charge, which is just mind boggling. I don't know, I don't understand the algorithms, but
Yeah, it's similar to being like Google. People say sometimes, "Hey, that guy's just Google smart. Like he knows how to, work a query." Say people say the same thing about YouTube. I mean, if I think about the number, I am not a mechanic. You don't want me under the hood of a car, but I have done more vehicle repairs and home repairs mainly because of the accessibility of YouTube. It's far different than just like, downloading a manual and reading it versus watching somebody physically do it.
yeah,
I mean, it has
very
made
different.
us much smarter and probably hurt the general fix it career field.
Yes. Yeah, it kind of undermines them a little bit because there's plenty of other people that are as well or even more experienced that are out there just doing this free of charge out of the heart, goodness and kindness of their heart, which is great for us, but yeah, maybe not so much for them. Okay. Chapter 14 is where we'll get into now with let's see. So Wade travels to planet IOI to meet up with Sorrento and hear his offers, but ultimately turns them all down when they turn out to be veiled threats towards his life and the life of his friends and family. Feeling as though there was a no-win offer, Wade logs out of the Oasis and nervously waits and calls IOI's bluff on blowing up his stacks. And of course, this kind of plans out. It happens just moments later. The entire thing blows up. The stacks blow up. It kills his aunt. Kills his what's his name? Her boyfriend. I forget the dude's name now. And sweet Mrs. Gilmore, which was really cool to see in the movie, but yeah, she kind of bit it there. And then obviously among other residents. So he panics. He rushes back to his hideout and he reaches out to H because he's just looking for a friendly face and needs to confide in somebody. And that's kind of what happens in this episode. We're introduced to this concept of chat links, which is what I guess it's almost like Zoom meetings today, right? Like you want to go talk to somebody in the Oasis, but you don't want to necessarily be together. You can have a chat link session where you just are kind of virtually together, and it talks about how the images of you are kind of ghostly and kind of apparition-y. That's probably not a word, but and we saw that in the movie too. I hate to keep going back to the movie, but I thought they did a good job of depicting that in the movie when he goes to Iowa and is talking to Sorrento as Parzival. You can see him; he's kind of translucent, opaque, and he kind of fades in and out depending on where he is. So I think they did a really good job of capturing, I think, what Ernie Klein was talking about here.
I think they did a good job of fixing what Ernie Klein did in the book, because in the book throughout chapter 14, they don't really give a lot of context to why he wasn't close to his aunt. He just says he wasn't.
Hmm.
Right? In the movie, they do a really good job of painting, this abusive relationship and how she didn't care at all and all of these things. In the book, there wasn't a lot painted to it. And he was just so dismissive of her death. Like, well, we weren't that close.
Yeah.
More worried about this old lady that lives downstairs. And you're like, dude, come on. She's still an innocent.
Yep. Yeah, and the only thing he says is like, yeah, I wasn't that close, but she didn't deserve to die. But you're right, that's it. He doesn't really. There's
Yep.
kind of like no real big remorse there.
And he's over it.
Yes, he is right over it. Moves right on. We also get to meet Sorrento here for the first time, and the description says blonde hair, brown eyes, hawkish nose. He did wear the standard Sixer uniform, a navy blue bodysuit with gold epaulets at the shoulders and a silver IOI logo on his right breast, with his employee number printed beneath it, 655321. Which that was the vision I had of him. I think going into the movie, that was a little different though. That was a harder one to kind of wrap my head around, and that's not a fault of anybody, and certainly not who played him, but that wasn't the character that I was depicting, which was fine.
No, he was much bigger in the book to me.
Yeah.
He was a booger. He was a bigger, steely character in the book. Although I thought they did all right. They make the 655-321 reference, so
I think isn't Artemis that's wearing that on her jacket when she goes in the movie?
No. Oh, in the movie, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's the number they have on her. But
so that's a Clockwork Orange reference movie, not the book.
Right.
Unless you just watch SpongeBob, then it's a SpongeBob reference.
Is it a SpongeBob reference?
As Plankton's inmate number also.
Is it really? I didn't know that. That's hilarious. They travel to Iowa, and this is, described as being covered with armories and bunkers, warehouses, vehicle hangars. I mean, it feels like it's a military base, only the size of a planet kind of thing, which was kind of cool. And by the way, I'm wearing as you can see right here, I'm wearing my Iowa shirt in honor of tonight's episode. I have a Sixers shirt too that I was going to wear, but this one was a little bit heavy on IOI, so I thought I'd wear that one. That's not important. They head up to the oology division, and we get to see, they talk about, Ernest Cline talks about Sorrento's massive, enormous office that he has, and this is where the first offer is made. And so the deal here is he gets to act as a consultant, as chief oologist, second in command only to Sorrento. He gets the company's vast resources at disposal. He gets monies, weapons, magic items, ships, artifacts, whatever he needs. He gets an office with a nice view, which I think was probably not in the works specifically, but there was $2 million a year with a $1 million sign-on bonus and $25 million should he find the egg. And the only hook to all of this is he has to live in the IOI headquarters. Not a bad deal, right? I mean, and this is again, going back to what we were talking about earlier, it's like, okay, so Wade entertains us. I don't know if this, and he does make he mentions this a little bit later where, I think it was on the final offer, or at least the second offer, not the final, but the second offer, he's like, that's a lot of money. I could take that, be done with it, not have to worry about it. I'd be set for life, but he ultimately turns it down. But it's not a bad offer.
Yeah, the offer is actually structured poorly for me. I didn't get into the legalese because they didn't actually show us the contract.
Yeah.
But I would have.
Here we go.
I definitely would have read it. No, my problem with it is that why would you do a year-over-year contract when you're basically looking at a tech hour pricing schema, right? Like, you don't need an annual salary to perform this function if there should be a finite end to what you're doing. So increase the return for you accomplishing the task and minimize the long-term investment we're going to make, because the real-time value of money today is going to mean more than it does in the future. So get a big upfront payment for signing the contract. That way you can get some interest on it, and then just live on that interest to fulfill the contract obligations to complete the task. You're going to make more money at the end of the day, Wade. Call me. You need a lawyer.
And cue the credit, the number down below. Wilkins Law Firm.
You need a tiger in your corner.
Oh, geez. We don't have that guy down up here, by the way. He's down there, I think. Oh, wait, no. Was that the Tiger
King? I don't know. There's a
Texas Hammer. There's somebody.
There's so many of them.
There are.
I would be the IOI Hammer.
The Hammer. You need to call the Hammer. No, sorry. That was
well done. I'm giving you a +5 for
Thank you.
Voice acting there.
I get 100 points. All right. So at that point, Sorrento starts monologuing, which was funny. He talks about the increasing the Sims once he takes over. Right, all this is done. They're going to increase the monthly fee of the Oasis. They're going to increase the advertising revenue that they're generating once they take it over. They want to introduce avatar content filters, which was kind of weird that they would go there. I don't understand why, and that was never explained. But why they would want to filter avatars out? Maybe they just want to
probably so they could charge licensing for people who were using skins that were owned by other companies.
Maybe they charge a premium there or something.
Yeah.
Stricter construction guidelines, and then Wade says you're going to turn this into the fastest corporate theme park where the people who can still afford the price of admission no longer have an ounce of freedom. And this is this chapter is like one of my favorites in terms of just pure narrative and kind of what's going back and forth. You really learn a lot about what's going on. But one of the things I thought about too, especially when that line is said, the Oasis is painted as this kind of, it only costs 25 cents. Everybody has access to it. But I always wondered about like the hardware, like your entry cost into getting this. And he does speak about there are lower entry level type rigs, right? You can just buy like a hat, a visor, and maybe not have the haptic gloves and all of that. But it does seem like this is still out of reach for especially in this time, for a lot of people, that the Oasis isn't something that, even though it is 25 cents and there's not a lot to spend monthly to get involved into it, it does feel like there's a lot of upfront cost for people, and it feels like it's out of reach for people that are really of low income and stuff like that, especially given, current times of all that. But any thoughts there? Do you get the same kind of sense that that's true, or?
I do, but I never. So one thing I don't understand about the book is when they're talking about these fully immersive
The
outfits
rigs?
they can get, and getting these rigs. I don't understand this because it's a huge disadvantage. I mean, consider me and you are playing a game of Street Fighter 2, right? And you're wearing a haptic feedback suit and I am not. And every time that my guile kicks you in the nuts,
Shutting that
you
off.
feel it. But every time that you hit me in the face, I'm just continuing to move forward. Like, it's a huge disadvantage. So unless
Yeah.
you're like in the Red Tube VR planet, you don't need haptic feedback.
I don't even know what that is, but I'm going to defer to you on what that is.
Sure.
What did you call it? Red 2? I really don't know what that is, but okay.
Oh my god, it's a different show altogether.
It is a different show. No, you're right. I wouldn't turn that stuff on either. I mean, he makes what's the smelling feature? He talks about that a little bit later and how he shuts that off and then later on he turns that on for one thing. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't want to do all that. It's the same reason, like, if I can play a game on a controller, I'm not going to go pick the wheel up and use that or
right.
Whatever.
I also don't know, they never get into the technology, how the revenue is working. I get more interested in that stuff these days, where I'm sitting there going, okay, so today, how are they scaling this? Right? Because you're getting
right.
users all the time. I need to store all this information. How am I doing that? I've got basically a planet that I'm storing all this stuff on, but I need to maintain it. And I'm not maintaining it for a quarter. I'm bleeding cheese, right? Like, as a corporation, I'm bleeding cheese. I need to get these eggs. Got to get it. Because at the end of the day, we're going straight to zero if I can't find a way to make money, right? I think
it's in the advertising. No, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it's in the advertising. I think you get to see that more in the movie than you do in the novel. They focus it on more. You can see all the mini ads and all of that. But I guess that's where they're making their money.
Yeah, but it's not enough. I mean, you can draw a parallel between what they're doing in the Oasis and what YouTube did, just based on the history that you just showed, right? So at first, ads are going to work, but now I need to sell premium content. Now I need to do this. Now I need subscriptions that are commercial free. You just continuously, they're adjusting their business model to compensate for the cost of scale, right? So the Oasis is going to have to do the same thing. They can't remain static. In some cases, I'm just saying, IOI might be the good guys. They got to do something.
Go.
They got to do something, right? You can't have the romance without the finance.
I can't believe you broke that reference up. Oh, all right. Sorrento's final. Speaking of Sorrento, thank you, Mr. Sorrento. We appreciate you being here tonight. No, Sorrento's final offer. He says, "Sit down, Wade." And at this point, he obviously has this oh crap moment that, how does he know my name? They now know where he lives. They show him the video feed of right outside the stacks. They think he's in the stacks, although he's in his hideout, which is not far away. And then this is where they threaten to blow up his home, kill him. And, and this is where, again, IROC's tip, or, him running his mouth, telling everybody that they're, on Ludus and he knows them. This is where they obviously pick this up. And Sorrento tells them, we paid off the people at your school to give us the information that we wanted. And they could offer, look at the money they're throwing around here. Who knows what they offered? They probably offered somebody a pretty penny to disclose information they couldn't disclose. And that person went off and, retired and lived a wonderful life somewhere else. So Wade leaves at that point because he's like, well, screw it. They're not going to, they're going to kill me either way, is what he says, right? No matter whatever. At that point, he realizes there was never any goodwill in any of these offers. And at some point,
I disagree with that. I think they would have preferred him play ball, right? I think they were going to kill him after he denied the first offer.
Yeah.
Like the second offer, even though that was still an option to work, just take us through the first gate, they would have killed him. But the first one, if you could have got him on your team, you'd want him. There's value in that. You'd pay for that, and you wouldn't want him dead.
Yeah.
But once he said no to that, loyalty above all. He's dying, bro.
Yeah, and Sorrento says that. He's like, I was hoping you would say no to the first offer, because at that point it's like, okay, all these other offers are from here on out. You're out of this picture at some point. I think you're right. I think there is some sincerity in that, at least the first offer, and they were hoping that he would take it. But I think from Wade's perspective, though, he doesn't feel like any of these offers were valid. I don't think he believes that they were any of these were sincere or genuine offers.
And to be fair, you may be right in the sense that I don't believe Sorrento wanted him to take any of the offers, but I do believe the board of IOI wanted him to take the first offer.
Right. It became personal. It became
because he wasn't concerned about Sorrento. You can almost see the change in the language and the dialogue as you're going through this chapter, because this is, in my opinion, I agree with you, the best written chapter of the book. Mm-hmm. You can see he goes through that transition where it's like, it's not about the money. When he asks for more money, it's dismissive. At the point that he starts asking for his position and for the title, that's when it starts getting a little more.
It gets personal.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Agree. Okay. And then lastly, Wade, he leaves. He tells him to piss off, gives him the finger, whatever, logs out. And it's moments later that he waits, thinks everything's cool. Suddenly the stacks blow up. He rushes out there. He freaks out, realizing that all these innocent people are now dead, and he could have been one of them. Rushes back into the hideout and decides that he's going to go ahead and call H just because he needs to talk to somebody. So it was a pretty good chapter. I mean, this is, again, like we've already said it, but this was one of the best chapters. I would agree. Maybe it is the best chapter. I hadn't really thought about it that much, but it is certainly one of my favorite chapters.
It's the best chapter to point. For sure. I think if anyone was looking at this from a literary perspective, it's the only time that you actually see two characters interacting, having a dialogue, something that looked, from my perspective, it's the first one that looked filmable and would require some acting. Like, you could film the previous chapters, but not a lot of acting involved.
Yeah.
It's all sci-fi. It's all just a bunch of, not sci-fi, CGI. You knew it was just going to be this action flick. This part feels like a story.
Right.
We're not going to get much more of it, just so you know.
Okay, let's talk about the pop culture from 14. And there's not a lot, so don't worry. We're at an hour and 42, but there's not much more, honestly, throughout the next two chapters. But the reference says, looming directly ahead of us was Planet IOI, a massive chrome globe. It reminded me of the killer floating spheres in the Phantasm films. Gunter's referred to IOI as the Sixer homeworld. So the reference here is what you see here. It's Phantasm, the movie. This was a movie that came out in 1979, was written and directed by Don Coscarelli, who we just spoke about. Was it last episode? I forget now.
Yep.
But
maybe episode 4 last.
Yeah, so this is kind of one, I think it was, I don't know if this was, maybe you have this in your notes. I can't remember if this was his first movie or not, but it was definitely one of his very first movies. It stars Michael Baldwin, Bill Thornberry. I was trying to find like funny names for these people, but like a lot of them really didn't do a whole lot outside of the Phantasm series.
Like the Baldwin that didn't exist.
Right.
Not from that Baldwin family.
It's not even from that Baldwin family. Like, yeah, I don't have any funny stuff here.
Not Billy Bob Thornton.
Nope. Reggie,
only an actor named Reggie.
Reggie Bannister. I did see the only movie that I recognize. Have you ever seen 2009's Carnies?
No, I haven't.
It is a terrible film, but for whatever reason, I've seen that one. That was the only one. Kathy Lester, and then there's the 6'4", weight unknown, parts unknown, Angus Scrimm as the tall man, who is the creepy dude there that we see in these two pictures.
He's the most interesting out of everybody, obviously. Yeah. Angus Scrimm actually has a Grammy. So he was a writer before he became an actor, and then he did liner notes for virtually every band in the 60s and 70s. He did liner notes for the Beatles, just like album liner notes.
Yeah, right.
And that's what he won a Lifetime Grammy for.
Yeah, and I don't know that he's, well, I guess if you're in the music industry or you just tend to cling on to pop culture stuff, you probably know him from that.
Cling on, do you?
But stop it. But I don't, like, most people see him and they only know him as the tall man from the Phantasm movies. And
he's been in almost all of them, right? Unlike most of the other characters, just him, the dude who's the ice cream man, he's in most of them. But Baldwin was kicked after the first one. They ended up replacing his character with some nobody, but Brad Pitt actually auditioned for that role and almost got it.
In the second one?
Yeah, in the second one.
That would have been an interesting movie, because I don't think his first movie was was it Cool World? No, it was, or Thelma and Louise.
Yeah, Thelma and Louise was his first
movie.
His first film.
Yeah.
Boy, crazy. Hey, did you know so have you seen Phantasm as part of homework? Did you go back and watch Phantasm again?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've seen So here's the thing: I've seen Phantasm many times. It is not a favorite movie of mine, but it's so cheesy and campy that I like it, and I think that's where the appeal is. So I don't recommend it as when somebody goes, "Hey, what's a good horror movie that I can watch?" This is not one of the ones that comes to mind. If someone says, "What's a low budget campy horror film from like the '70s that at times is almost laughable," this is a movie that I do recommend, and that's not a slight against the movie, but because there is a niche of movies like that. There are plenty of them that kind of fall in that category for me.
It's no Manos Hands of Fate, but it will get
oh
the
man,
job
you're pulling
done.
at my heartstrings. I love that movie to death. But yeah, so I have seen all of the Phantasms. I couldn't tell you much about. I would honestly say I've seen like the sequels once, maybe ever, and that was when we were on a kick of let's rent all of these and watch them together. And this was the only one that I ever went back to.
So runtime of the original was like 97 minutes, although the original cut that the director produced was over 3 freaking hours. Can you imagine watching 3 hours of that?
I can't.
So they found some of that footage in the 90s and then recycled it and threw it in Phantasm 4. But they've never found the complete 3-hour director cut.
Yeah.
It's lost.
So another quick note on the production. This was filming in parallel with Star Wars. So George Lucas, and they're at the same studio, 20th Century Fox.
Really?
Yeah. So they're recording both of these movies in tandem. And we're going to talk about Star Wars again because there's some more interesting in the film. I mean, we can talk about the film if you want. Let's talk about the film first because I don't want to pull away from it. But I guess what were some of your favorite moments in this thing?
I think both of you take the same. Probably the first takeaway would be the same, which is the Jawas.
All right, fine. Well, hold on. Don't get into that because we're gonna talk about the Jawas.
I mean, look, there's only like 4 things to know about Phantasm: tall man, silver balls, yellow blood, Jawas. That's it. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, that's all right. Well, we're gonna move on. This is I've got the silver balls there. It's funny. They've got an ornament you can buy. Mondo, the guys that do a lot of the merchandise for movies and stuff, they have a Christmas ornament that you can purchase. I'd never buy this, but I thought that was interesting. And then you can buy like a real sharpened razor blade looking ball in the top right hander of the Sphere collection. I've heard people have cut themselves with that one. And so there's the ball. It's floating, spinning around. If you look closely, and you probably can't see it because you're not, especially if you're listening, you can't see this. But if you're watching, if you look closely there, you can see the camera for the ball. And throughout the movie, if you watch the original cut, all the strings are highly, highly visible. They redid this. They recut this thing in 2016 with some footage, which I'm going to talk about here in a minute, why they did that. But they removed a lot of that string, that art. The version that I have is an older version, and it's so noticeable that it's almost distracting at times as you're watching it. But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, outside of that, I mean, the fly and the garbage disposal scene is always one that
I forgot about that.
up.
So all the Jawas, they're obviously
all right. Let's get.
I don't know that it's even better that we call them minions because that's what they were, minions. So now I just imagine only one of 2 things: they're either Jawas or minions wearing robes that look like Jawas. Either way, it's not setting a very scary picture. But even what really twists your mind is to know that all of those minions were played by children under the age of 12, right? So now rewatch the movie knowing that those are little kids that they're beating the snot out of with hammers and stuff.
Yeah, they didn't have any stunt doubles in there.
It's a sad story.
So the story behind this, so Star Wars again. So it's being filmed right on at the same time that Star Wars is being filmed, and the movie came out. People talked about Jawas. And at the time, there was a lot of conversation around, okay, did you realize there's Jawas in your movie? And this is, talking to Don about his movie, and he didn't realize it. And he's like, okay, well, it's no big deal. I didn't know anything about the movie. He still to this day says it's just pure coincidence. They were filmed at the same time. The story was written well before he had come up with the story like 2 years before it released. So he was writing the story, and George Lucas's history. He's had this story in his head for the longest time. But nonetheless, if you look at these pictures that we're showing here, in the top right-hand corner, it is a little gray, a little darker to see. But they look exactly like Jawas. And there's a great picture down here of some of the action figures that someone did, and those are using some of the costumes. And so you've got like a Jawa figure next to one of these. I don't know what was their official term. I always called them Jawas. I don't even know what their real
They're
name
minions.
was. Minions,
They're
yeah.
minions. Yeah, minions.
It looks like a Jawa. Outside of the eyes, I mean, everything else about them looks exactly like that. But the Star Wars references don't stop there. So,
Oh, it's really?
yeah.
Now
So,
let's see here.
so when J.J. Abrams took over to write the Force Awakens, he wanted to come up with a character, and the character that you see up here on the top left hand corner is Captain Phasma.
You're not showing anything, nor have you, for the duration of this section.
Oh, that's okay. Sorry, I missed this. Oh, let me.
But you're doing a really good job of describing everything. So I really didn't need to.
Yeah, no, I'm glad I was able to do that here. Let me pull this up. Sorry about that. There we go.
Hey, that one's for you, JR.
JR, yeah. Well, see, here's the we didn't even show these pictures. So here's the movie posters. There's the spinning. I gotta put I want to do my animated effect. There's a spinning ball. There's the ornament, and then here's the real life razor blade ball. Oops, sorry. Yeah, okay. So here's the Jawas. So in the top left hand corner, you see Phasma. Her name was actually a tribute to the Phantasm movie. So J.J. Abrams wanted to use this, and so you get to see the globe, the chrome dome, and all this gets explained as though her armor was made from ship armor that came out during the Clone Wars period, right? And exactly the ship that Amidala used, but I don't want to get into that whole story. But the name Phasma comes from Phantasm, and he was paying tribute to this. Well, fast forward, so that was kind of a cool thing. He said, Don there's quotes on there. He's on record as saying he was really just kind of, surprised and honored that somebody would do that. And then later on, when I don't remember if it was like the 35th anniversary or whatever, one of the big anniversaries of Phantasm was coming out, Abrams reached out to him and said, "Hey, I've got a bunch of people. Let me put you in contact with my people, and we'll get this thing redone and reissued and cut for you." And so, excuse me, they went and used a lot of they upped it to like 4K, put it in high def, and they went through and just painstakingly cleaned up the original version of Phantasm. And Don is like really, really happy with how it came out. I've never seen this version. After finding all this out, I really wanted to go back and watch it to see the difference, because I've only ever seen the original grainy, really crappy quality versions that have existed out there on VHS and Laserdisc and all that. I've never seen anything really super high definition. But from what he's saying, it sounds like it was a pretty good cut. So kudos to J.J. Abrams for kind of helping him there, and then for obviously paying tribute with Captain Phasma and using that look and the name as a tribute to the Phantasm Ball.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that I'd be down for that. Like, I'm a purist. Like, there's some albums that I listen to, I got to listen to in mono. There's things that just make sense more on wax and don't sound good when I'm listening to like 5.1 audio surround sound of certain artists. I feel the same way about these 70s, 80s eras horror films. I like the grittiness of them. It's actually more frightening to me. Like, I think the grainy version of
Chainsaw Massacre,
any of them, Chainsaw Massacre, I was actually thinking of The Shining, is far scarier than watching a really crisp version of it, right? Where it's completely clean. I like that I did not know the Phasma versus Phantasm, but I know that the word phantasm, right, was popularized by Edgar Allan Poe. Wasn't really used in literature before him. He quotes it in at least 4 of his stories, including Black Cat and Mask of the Red Death.
Yep, I read that too. I didn't realize he was one of the ones that used it as much. Yeah, I don't know. Overall, it's not a bad movie. Again, it's not a movie I recommend for like gonna scare your pants off kind of thing, but it's fun to watch.
It is.
It is definitely a movie you get together with people, throw in popcorn, beer, have fun watching it.
Yeah. I think, and if you're a young filmmaker, it's good to see like just what you could do with practical effects, because it wasn't like they had a huge budget. And some of the things they do, I spend like a lot of time watching Phantasm, where I remember watching it thinking, how do they do that? Like, how are they getting the blood to come out the other side when the drills?
Yeah, or the finger, the way that moves. Yeah. You can almost figure it out. You can back into a lot of how it happened. Okay, so this is I'm not going to make a big deal about this one because I really don't know if this is a reference or not. But there is one.
I'm giving you a 9. So we're gonna have to build a chart that you can put on your things where when you make a conjecture as to is he talking about this, I can score it. I'm giving you a 9 on this. Before we get started.
So I'm showing a picture now of Ernest Cline's Armada novel. Now this came out obviously after Ready Player One, but there's a reference in here. It says, "I motioned to one of the new Habishaw immersion rigs. Nice gear," I said. It really was too, state of the art. And there's a character in. So if you've not read Armada, I'm not going to spoil anything because I do. At some point, I've always talked about doing an Armada show or just doing some kind of a show to do this book because we could do the same freaking thing.
Do not do this
in Armada. But okay. Anyways, so in Armada, there is a character, the lead character, Lightman. One of his boss, or I guess his ex-boss at that point. His real name is Worzbowski, which is a tribute to the Aliens character. But what that character's real name is Habishaw. And so I think it's a reference here. Now, it could just be that this name has always been in the back of his head and he wanted to throw it down on paper and then he got to reuse it again in Armada. But I mean, there really isn't a lot of Habishaws out there, right? And it's interesting that he focused on that name, but I think it is a callback. I think there's a tie here, very loose tie, but I think that's exactly where it came from. Am I crazy?
No. I'm giving you a solid 9 for this. I mean, the way I look at it is by 2011, he was already in negotiations for the film rights for Armada. He hadn't even finished writing it, but it means he at least had a treatment for it at that point. For sure, the characters, including that character, would have already been identified within that treatment he needed to pitch the studio. And he had wrapped up Ready Player One, but I'm thinking those are just stories that were in his head at the same time.
Yeah, right. And then just quickly as a quick plug, there is, if you're on Twitter, there is now an official Armada movie Twitter handle. So you can go out there and follow them. There's not many followers just yet. It just came out like last week. And I went so far as to reach out to Dan Farah, who is Ernie Cline's, I guess it's not his agent, but he basically is the one. He represents Ernie Cline. He represents like Tony Danza. We talked about him, I think, on the last show or the show before that. But I reached out to him and just said, "Hey, can you confirm whether or not this handle, because it doesn't have the official little blue thing for Twitter, is a legit thing?" And so, long story short, is yes, this is the real Armada Twitter page you can go to and follow. So if you're a fan of the novel, go follow them. The movie is coming out. It's in pre-production right now, but this is where you'll get all the news and information about that. So kind of cool. All right, moving on.
Nice try. That's not a good book.
I like that. I like the book. All right, here. So we can't spend time on. Let's talk about this next one, because this is one where I'm probably going to get a 1. I don't know. Maybe I didn't. So this reference.
You're getting a super 1 on this.
This is me hoping and praying that I got this one right. But here's the reference, and then I'll let you speak to it, and then I'll counter. I'll give you the strongest argument that I have as to why this is the reference here. So it says,
and then I'm going to offer you options for what the reference I believe could be.
Okay.
All of which I think are stronger than yours.
All right, that's fine. It says, "I don't want to be second in command," I said. "I want your job, Sorrento. I want to be in charge of the whole shebang. Chief of operations, el numero uno. And I want everyone to call me el numero uno, too. Is that possible?" Okay, so there is a song. It's by a band, and you can't really call them a band, but there was a band that came out in 1988 by the band name of Starlight. And they produce this Euro Italian house song called Numero Uno. If you're listening to the podcast, I am already playing it in the background right now for you. I can't pull it up because Google will pull it down, YouTube will pull it down, but I can lay it down as a in the music bed of the podcast. But you're listening to the song in the background, and it's such a far-fetched reference. Number one, my own counter argument here is it's not a verbatim, right? The song is called Numero Uno. He's mentioning El Numero Uno in the novel, and there are plenty of references in the novel where Ernie Cline uses Spanish, amigo, de nada, right? He says that all. Wade says that a lot. H says it a lot. So he just, and numero uno means number one. So again, not too crazy to think that there's really nothing here, that it's malign. But the strongest argument that I have for it is this song here. And I'm showing this, the video didn't come out very well, but I'm showing a picture now of a song called L.A. Styles, James Brown is Dead. Now, this song does make it in the novel. It's a song that happens, and we'll talk about this later in that chapter, but when they're at in the Globe, Distracting Globe, this song is the one that plays after, I think, the big, I think it's after the big battle, the big fight, right? He cues up this song. If you've ever listened to this song, it is not an 80s song, right? This song came out in the 90s. It is a European house track that had some very minor success in the U.S., but for the most part, a lot of people don't hear it. And when you think about all the music that's talked about in Ready Player One, this stands out like a sore thumb because it's really not in that same vein. It's not even the same era of music. And so the way I'm drawing the two lines here is if he was listening to James Brown is Dead by L.A. Style, which is a band that we wouldn't think or know of really, unless you were into that genre, I don't think it's too far-fetched to think that the song Numero Uno, and if you listen to it, it sounds very similar. It's the same kind of music, if you will. I don't think it's too far-fetched to think that maybe this is what he was listening to. Maybe he does. If he was listening and knew about this crazy track here, I don't think it's too far-fetched to think that maybe he didn't think about that crazy track right there. All right, that's all I got.
Is it my turn, counselor?
It's yours.
Allow me to
yield back
rebut
my
this
time.
argument. First of all, L.A. Style was not some small, whatever the name of this El Numero Uno band.
Starlight.
Yeah, Starlight was. L.A. Style was big. Now, look, we lived two different lives in the early 90s, right? If you went to a club at all, like any club, during like 90 to 93, you're going to hear James Brown is Dead. This was now it didn't chart, but most club music didn't chart, right?
Yeah.
Like with the exception of like maybe Hadaway and a couple of others, right?
Hadaway.
First of all, my first argument to your position would be that you've forgotten your roots. Like, why didn't you go with Los Incorables de Tijuana, which has a song called El Numero Uno? It's like verbatim. Of course, why would Ernie Klein know anything about?
Yeah. I know.
Okay, I get that.
Yeah,
but I think the idea of saying El Numero Uno was very popular. But if we're just going by music, if we're just looking for a counter argument for music, I would go with DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, who had a song called Numero Uno. It was in the 80s. It was far more popular than whatever this is. The band is far more recognizable. So I demand you play that song over this part in order so that we have equity. Also, I mean, everybody was using that Numero Uno at the time. I mean, even in Pumping Iron, Arnold Schwarzenegger's wearing a shirt that says Arnold is Numero Uno, and he actually says it several times in the movie. So I'm giving your linkage on Starlight, I'm giving it a 2.
Like, I went up from a 1. Scale. I think that.
You moved the needle a little bit with your argument, but the interconnect between El Numero Uno and LA Style, even that connection is pretty weak.
Yeah.
In fact, in retrospect, I'm taking a half point away. You're at 1.5. I'm not buying it.
What a jerk face. Okay, that's fine. I'll concede.
No one knows who Starlight is. No one's ever heard of that.
Well, that's because you don't know them as Starlight. You probably know them as the what was their other name? Groove Melody. You know them as that.
Who's that?
No, I'm kidding. That was what they did. So they had the name Starlight for like the first year, like in 1988. By 1990,
they had another name like SIG or something like that.
They had several names. And then there was controversy with the lead singer, like she was lip syncing on Battle. It was kind of predates. What's her name? The Spears girl coming on.
I don't know. I would argue you're more famous than anyone that's in this band.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
That wasn't a compliment.
Oh, sorry about that. You're probably right on both accounts. I like the DJ Jazzy Jeff thing. I hadn't seen that one or looked into it. The only thing I would say about that is the one thing that I feel is absent from Ready Player One is 80s rap. And it was huge, and there's not much of it reference, and that just because maybe he didn't.
I don't know. There's boombox references. We talked about that in the past. I think there's enough periphery about hip hop culture, not as much as there probably should be, but at the end of the day, he's in Ohio,
right? Right. NWA is probably not kicking out there in Ohio.
No.
Although at some point it probably was, but
Yo, Hammer, you ain't kicking in Columbus,
It's
Ohio. What you gonna do about that, Hammer?
I'm gonna churn this mother out. There you go.
Excellent. No
All right.
extra charge.
That's free. I thought we'd play a real quick game because we're over on time. Let's do this. So we're talking about the numero uno, right? Uno means one in English, Spanish, whatever. I don't even know what language I'm speaking.
I was tracking.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. All right, so I'm going to throw up a couple of. I've got seven bands I'm going to put up now, and I want you to tell me the song that has their famous song that has the word "one" in it. You got that?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. This is the
You
first
start
band.
easy. Give me U2 first.
Here we go.
Nice.
U2 is first.
Nice.
All right.
Got
So name the song that they have that has the word "one" in it.
You know what's embarrassing is I thought this song was called One.
It is. That was a trick.
Okay. Okay. I was like, one love, one blood.
It's called One. Yeah, I was just jacking with you. All right. Oh, look at JR says he's in Ohio and they're into hip hop.
Yeah, they
Cool.
like the hips and the hops. They like all of it.
Hippity hop. All right. George Michael. What song did he do that had the word "one" in it?
Mm-hmm.
It was a ballad. I'll give you that.
Well, I have it down to two, right? So it's either going to be Father Figure or Careless Whisper. And I'm going to say Careless Whisper, but I think they both have the word "one" in them.
So the big song that I had, and I probably should have been more clear. The title of the song has the word "one" in it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my bad.
I'd say.
Want another try here?
No, go ahead.
One more try.
Oh.
You remember the ballad song?
Why didn't you go Stevie B on that?
Oh, no. No. We're not going to get into that. That's twice you've tried to bring me into that conversation. I'm not doing it. All right, here we go with Britney Spears.
Hit Me Baby One More Time.
Baby One More Time. That's
Baby
right.
One More Time.
Okay.
That's
all right.
I like that.
Band 4. Do you know who that is? She looks a little different here. Man, she's gorgeous.
Wow.
That's Shania Twain, by the way.
Oh, dude. I call it. It's you.
What is
I don't know. I don't listen to country music.
She transcended country. Like she.
You know who says that? Country fans say that.
No, I will show you a video, sir, on YouTube that has her and how successful she was. This was You're Still the One.
Oh, still the one. Yeah.
I mean that everybody like you hear it and you're like, oh,
give me a couple of bars of it. Maybe it'll come back to me.
No. I am not in her octave at all. Okay. Here's one. Queen.
No idea.
Another one bites at us. I know.
I could just run through the titles, but I feel like we're behind and no one wants to hear these long pregnant pauses.
I'm going to edit them all out anyways.
Oh, good.
Don't worry about it. We're going to edit
That's not helping JR right now. He's got things to do.
I know he does. All right, this. You can't see the band, but the video is so iconic.
Yeah, Metallica
right?
1. I got that one.
Metallica 1 all day long.
Yep.
I should have put these in order of easiness or ease. That's probably a better word.
No,
all right, here's your last one.
Better. REM. I don't know.
The one I love.
Everyone Hurts.
That was the prequel to Everybody Hurts, but no. Nice try. Now this was the one I love. This one goes out to the one I love.
Okay, that was not as good as the Shania Twain.
All right, I don't know what you did. I don't know how well you did there. You got one.
Oh, that was terrible. That was terrible. But we're 2 hours deep, and I'm like on my second Captain Morgan.
Well, good, because now we're going to talk about 56K modems.
Because nothing gets people hyped like talking about baud rates. Let's go.
We'll keep this short because I don't know that we can make this any more interesting than it is. I mean, you got a circuit board up here that I'm showing, so that tells you. But here's another reference that it's a reference. Hopefully, I get a high score. Now I'm like trying to get your approval here, but the reference says Wade Owens Watts, born August 12th. 2026, both parents deceased. And we also know where you are. You reside with your aunt in a trailer park located at 700 Portland Avenue in Oklahoma City, unit 56K to be exact. And so this seems like a very casual reference. He lives on, 56K is the unit number, but then I think, okay, 56K, that's significant. That means something to me. That was the ultimate speed prior to cable or prior to dial-up modems finally being displaced and surpassed by cable modems. But that's kind of where we peaked at 56K. In fact, I don't know that we could even get any faster at that. I think we hit like the theoretical limits in terms of what we could deliver over telephone lines. But so I thought we would just quickly talk. We're not going to spend a lot of time in here. I've got a couple of different pictures of different modems up at the top. That's a 300 baud modem. I've got a a V34, so that's a 28.8. I've got a 14. I didn't put these in order. I've got a 2800 here on the top right-hand corner. That's a 33.6. By this point, we were moving out of the external modems that plugged in, and they were becoming more common to put them in PCI slots or ISA slots or whatever the technology bus that you're running, architecture you're running. And then the bottom right-hand corner, that was an external 56K modem. In the, I guess, first off, am I again making things up here? Do you think there was a significance or I guess, did it matter that he used 56K? Was he really trying
I'm buying this one. I'm giving you a solid 9 on this for sure.
Boom.
Boom. Killed it.
Killed it. I'm done.
Yep.
2 for 2.
So all I remember about this era of computing is A, the sound that these modems made, and 2, I remember when 56K came out, I bought this sweet translucent green 56K modem. I don't know what off-brand made it. It was an external, and it had LEDs all inside of it that they meant nothing. But they looked incredibly cool.
I bet. Yeah, I mean, and there was for 56K modems, and just the only thing I'll say about this, because I had a whole lot more that I was going to talk about, but it's really not interesting. The only thing I would say is when 56K modems came out, we were again hitting the ceiling in terms of technology that we could get. If you wanted to go faster than 56K, you really only had one option for a little bit there, and that was going with ISDN lines. And ISDN lines were just way more expensive, so much more expensive that they were out of price for everyday people, and that would get you up to 128K. So you use 2 phone lines at 64K max, and that would get you to 128, right? Beyond that, it would be another couple years before cable modems were introduced, and that allowed you to have 1 meg down speeds, and the up speeds were kind of fluctuating, but that was, just infinitely faster than even 56K. It was just mind-blowing. And again, this is where we talked about this in the last episode, where this was the demise of bulletin board systems as we knew them then. And again, they're still around today, but this was the big killer. Cable modems were the big killer for dial-up connections, and a lot of the I would say I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, like the culture.
Burn.
Yeah, I'm talking about
anytime you say what's the word, I'm going to do the Little Mermaid.
Oh God, that's the reference. I get what you're saying. Yeah. Where do I run? So no, this was the culture that came and that was bred and lived and thrived off of dial-up modems all kind of went away the minute dial-up modems went away as soon as the cable modems came out. So, all right, that's enough of that one. Okay, last reference on this before we get to the final one, and there's really again not much left, but we're going to talk about big gulps. And it says the residents who lived in nearby stacks knew that if the fire spread, they were in big trouble. So a lot of them were already scrambling to fight the blaze using garden hoses, buckets, empty big gulp cups, and whatever else they could find. Before long, the flames were contained and the fire began to die out. So the big gulp is interesting. The story behind this is that at the time, this is in Southern California, there was a 7-Eleven, the chain of 7-Eleven stores was really kind of hurting for sales. And they were approached by Coke and said, hey, we want to introduce a 32-ounce drink. Would you be willing to put it in your stores and just see how it does? This guy that was running there at the time was kind of a merchandiser for 7-Eleven, decided, okay, what do I've got to lose? If anything else, things are already bad, so they can't get any much worse. And so they put them in the stores. And within like the first week or two, these things sold out. And they realized there was a huge demand. Over the course of, I don't know, the next weeks, months, a year, whatever else, their sales and soda sales doubled. And that's kind of what birthed the 32-ounce drinks. From there, that's kind of history as we know it. I thought the more interesting thing, though, to talk about here, and I don't have this in the show notes, so I may be surprising you here a little bit, but I thought the more interesting thing would be to talk about the other sizes of soft drinks over the years. So I'm going to start in the bottom left-hand corner here, and I'm showing, this should be familiar with you, right? This is the
Yep.
Whataburger, right? We've got Whataburger here in Texas. They're all over.
It's a small Whataburger, 32 ounces. I
That
don't
is-
know.
This is the drink that comes with by default with your meal.
Yeah, that, and you know who else? It's Jack in the Box. Jack in the Box doesn't make a drink container smaller than a barrel. Like, I don't know who's drinking all this beverage.
I don't know either. But 32 ounces, so that's the same size as a Big Gulp, right? And Whataburger hands these out just you know, at will.
But that was a massive drink, though, right? The Big Gulp was massive.
Oh yeah, at the time. So at the time, 6 ounces was normal, right? The biggest drink that you could buy was 20 ounces back in 1976. This is when this all was created, right? 20 ounces was the biggest you could find. So this is a huge step. I mean, this is what? 50% more than 50% more drink in a 32 ounce drink. Okay.
Well done, sir.
Doing the math there on the fly.
Did the math all by yourself.
So then Supersize came out. So this is McDonald's, right? They came out with the Supersize thing, and they've pulled this back, obviously, for a lot of reasons. But that came in at 42 ounces. So I try to make these to scale as well. So you've got 32 ounces. You've got a 42 ounces. Now, not to be outdone, Sonic came in and said, okay, we're going to do a 44 ounce drink. So this is the Route 44. This exists today if you want to go out and buy it. It's usually like 2 ounces of drink and 42 ounces of ice. So you need to pull back on the ice whenever you order these things, so they will fill them up. Then they came out with the double Big Gulp. So 7-Eleven's got a double Big Gulp. They still have this out there in some stores, and this is 64 ounces of soda, which is absolutely, we're getting into like, you know, crazy talk. I couldn't find, I've read this a number of places, but there is a convenience store, I think is what it is, called Arco. You familiar with them?
Of course I am.
Okay. You travel more than I do, but so
I
Arco's
work for an energy company.
that's okay. That's true too. So Arco does, they do gas stations, but they have a, in their stores, they've got a drink called the Beast, and that is an 85 ounce drink that you can drink, which is crazy to think about. But then finally, not to be outdone, 7-Eleven has something called the Team Gulp, and that is 128 ounces of soft drink. And you think about like where we were with the Big Gulps at 32 ounces, we're up to 120, and that's not it. I mean, there are other ones, like I've seen like Buc-ee's has this barrel with a handle on it that I don't know why or who drinks that much soda, but I guarantee you, every time I go into like a Buc-ee's, there are people with these things and they're filling them up, and I'm thinking, you are going to die of diabetes. There's no way you're going to make it here.
You don't know that. You're not a doctor.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me defer to you on that then. What do you?
Really, that's a Gatorade product. It's in a green. It's in a green container.
Yeah, I think that's what they were targeting, right? We can put 128 ounces of like Gatorade. We'll market the sports people, and by the way, we'll market everybody. You know, under the table, everyone else will buy this for their Dr. Pepper or Coke or whatever. So.
I think in San Antonio, at least growing up in that era, it was far more common to see stop and goes were far bigger in San Antonio for retail presence. And their version of the 42 ounce, because they had a 42 ounce, and I think it was called the Big Hog.
Yeah.
Right. So they had the Hog that was the same size as the Big Gulp. And then they had the Big Hog, which was bigger than that. And it had pigs all over it because America, we're not even trying to hide the gluttony that you guys have.
You are pigs. You're holding
it's
pig
just
stuff.
a family of pigs on this. You can go out there and find that. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Ugh.
All right. Well, that was fun.
It was interesting that you brought back that there was like a resurgence in the convenience stores after they introduced these. But from a retail convenience store perspective, these are typically loss leaders, right? So they call beverages loss leaders. The intent is low price, 69-cent drinks to get you in the door to buy the stuff that actually costs money. So most convenience stores make their money off of a handful of items. Let's see if you could name any of the top 3
of items. Cigarettes.
Of items. Yep, cigarettes still number 1 in terms of profitability.
I'm going to guess beer would be number 2.
Yep, you're winning. 1 to go.
3
in Texas. We'll go with in Texas.
In Texas?
Yeah.
That makes me think it's like a localized thing, or like
no. You just have to think it's another vice. Go with it.
Oh, well, no, that wouldn't be it. Okay. Cigarettes, chewing tobacco?
No, I would keep that are tobacco products. It's lottery tickets. So those 3 things. Yeah. And then followed by milk, ice, and some other things. But this guy doesn't really hit the radar. Probably did back in the 80s, but today not so much.
Yes. And that's probably a good point. Like everybody does this now, right? I mean, there's no shortage of big drinks and They are loss leaders. Like outside of and it's different. Like when you go to a restaurant, like they charge a pretty penny for the Route 44 at Sonic. It ain't cheap,
Yep.
right? But if you go, you can get the same amount of drink. And I can tell you, when I would drive into work, I'd pick up my Sonic, get no drink, and then go right across the street to a 7-Eleven or a convenience store and buy a massive drink for like 69 cents and walk right out of there. And I was saving,
Yeah, and that's
$2.
almost like what you'd see today with like a Circle K locally, is that it's probably 69 to $1.29. Same flat rate. Doesn't matter if you want 16 ounces or 42. Same across the board.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've killed that horse. We've got one chapter left, and there's not a lot in this chapter, so we'll try to make this quick. But this is chapter 15. This is the Ludus invasion. It starts with the gunships arriving on Ludus, so word has spread. They're starting to land everywhere. They've put up this bubble, not allowing people to kind of come into land on Ludus to get the copper key. Parsifal tells H that his home is gone and that Sorrento knows that who he is as well. So he's almost warning him, telling him, hey, you need to look out for yourself as well because they know who you are. He threatens, Sorrento even mentioned that when they were meeting together there on IOI's planet. And H is, he decides that why don't we all call everybody together, the high five, and get everybody talking. We can come up with a plan, talk about next steps, what we need to do. It's probably a given that they know who we all are at this point, which is probably true. And so they call this meeting in the basement, where we get the name of the show, obviously. And this is where we finally get to meet Daito and Shaito in person. Daito is the taller of the two. He appeared to be in his late teens. Shoto was a foot shorter and looked much younger, maybe about 13. Both avatars looked Japanese, and they bore a striking resemblance to one another, life snapshots of the same young man taken 5 years apart. They wore matching suits of traditional samurai armor, and each had both a short wakizashi and a long katana strapped to his belt. And so Parsifal kind of spearheads this meeting, tells them that, hey, not only are they after us and they know who we are, they're also cheating. They're using like hacked rigs. They're communicating with one another. There's kind of like this hive mind mentality in terms of how they're going about and trying to solve these puzzles and things. And so he's really kind of trying to paint this picture that we've got a lot going against us. And Daito almost takes this almost as a sign of disrespect. That are you saying that we need to kind of clan up together, and that you don't think that we can't solve the egg or find the egg on our own? He takes offense to this, and those guys, they kind of bail on the high five at that point. And H didn't help out. I mean, H is the one that's kind of doing all this, not necessarily Parsifal, but H is the one that's is kind of the catalyst here in getting Daito to kind of feel like, I don't want any part of this. So they go ahead and leave.
I also felt like he was doing a little cock blocking at the beginning.
Maybe.
Just a little bit. She's all into his basement. She's talking about, hey, you're the man for letting me come in and drop in whenever I want. He was like, oh yeah, I am. I'm
yeah,
like, hey,
come down
easy,
anytime
man.
you want to.
Your pants. Why isn't Artemis jumping in there and be like, hey, bro, this one's mine. I tagged it earlier. This is.
Yeah, I don't. It's. I didn't read that, but yeah, I can see. I can see what that is.
It doesn't actually say cock blocking.
No, it does not. You can do a search on that. It does not come up.
It does not.
And then so Artemis leaves, and Daito, Shoto have already left, and they're kind of left there. And this is where we get that moment where suddenly a stack of comic books fall over at the very end of this chapter, and you don't think much of it. This comes back way later in the novel. In fact, you don't really realize what's happened here until literally the very end of it. So it's a huge stretch of the novel before we kind of find out what that was. But it pretty much just kind of ends there. All right, let's get right into the pop culture references. Unless you want to talk about something?
Jump in,
yeah, go ahead.
Hey, my thoughts on this is, how incompetent is the IOI? Like, I know you're wearing their gear tonight, but bro, seriously. So it opens and Parsifal is like, he throws his rig on, he materializes there, he sees ships overhead. H is basically telling him there's thousands of them. They're scanning the planet. They're looking for the entrance. Bro, seriously? It took Parsifal 5 minutes to find it in the universe, right? And then once he identified the planet, it took him less than an hour. You're telling me these thousands of people couldn't find it. And we talked about this earlier, but I absolutely hate the level of incompetency that they attribute to the IOI, only because it starts minimizing them as a threat, right?
Yeah.
Like, I love books and movies where you feel like the bad guys are going to win. And because of the level of incompetence at this point in the book, especially in this chapter, I felt like, dude, this is no threat. They will never, ever they're never going to find anything. They're never going to find a key. They're never going to get through a gate. They have to do all these tricks. And even then, they're not going to, because they're incredibly inefficient. And as someone who supports organizational development, it's time for us to talk to the HR group over at IOI and start recruiting people on a different skill set. It's terrible.
Yeah, you've exposed a lot, and they're probably better for it. This is like real talk. They need to hear.
They need to hear it,
Someone
right?
needs
So
to-
we've established Artemis needs me as a lawyer to review his contract. IOI needs to review their HR policies on recruitment. These things need to happen.
The hammer. Let's bring that one back. All right. The last reference we have in this novel, in this chapter, I should say, not the novel, but in this chapter, the only thing we've got left to talk about is the high five itself. And the reference here is, are you kidding? How could I miss it? This is the first meeting of the high five. The high five, I said. Yeah, H said, that's what they're calling all of us on the message boards now. So they've tagged them as the high five, given that they hold the top 5 positions on the scoreboard. And I thought and I've got a picture of the movie. There was some other great fan art that I was going to include, and I didn't really get a chance to include it. But I thought this does a job to represent the 5 of them at the time.
It does, but spoiler alert in that photo, right? So at this point, it should have just been avatars. You should have just posted avatars here.
Yeah, they're in the background, but yeah.
Yeah, because H hasn't been exposed yet, right?
Right.
At this point in the book.
No, not till later. She doesn't get exposed till later. All right, so I want to talk about the origin of the high five just very quickly. And there's 2 origins. Like I don't know. Like I looked at a couple of different articles, did some research there, and it doesn't seem like there's a clear winner here in terms of who was the first. Very similar to the fist bump. We talked about that a couple episodes ago. Same
I thought
kind
it was
story
pretty. I thought it leaned toward one. Go ahead and go through, but I looked at probably, because I'm a crazy person, about 50 different sources. And I would say that it is probably, I think it's probably 42-8. And probably the one that you would assume is going to be the leadoff. So go ahead.
Yeah. So there's in the top left-hand corner, this is Dusty Baker and Glenn Burke of the Los Angeles Dodgers, who are 2 professional baseball players. And they are, I guess, on record as doing the high five on October 2nd, 1970. Was it 77? Yeah, 77. Yes, and then in the bottom right-hand corner, you've got Willie Brown and Derek Smith of the Louisville Cardinals men's college basketball team. And there's video of them doing it during the 1978 to 1979 season. My gut tells me, just based on math alone, it's probably the top left-hand corner. But do you have anything that proves contradictory to that?
No. I don't think anything proves it. I think there's always going to be that debate on where you live in the country. But ultimately, it seemed like everybody that I read that's the one. The 77 was the one. And
what's interesting is Willie Brown, the stuff that I saw with Willie Brown himself, he's the one that's going out there saying, no, it's not them, it's us. We are the ones that did it. We created it long before they did, even though the math and that it doesn't really line up. But
well, you've got no shortage of people claiming to take credit for the high five. I mean, even Magic Johnson says he invented it during the early 80s, right? And introduced it to the sports world. But yeah, of course, there's no shortage there. I mean, it's not like they introduced the idea of giving someone 5. We're talking specifically about the high five.
Yeah.
So the low 5 was actually popularized as early as the 1920s, follows jazz roots through that time. We're just talking about the high five.
High five.
Although there's a bunch of variations out there. What variations are you familiar with, Howard?
Well, let's look at some. So I've got a number of variations that I'm showing up here. So there's the air 5. So in the top left-hand corner, I've got Pam and Jim doing the high five there, or the air 5 from The Office.
So I saw they call that the air 5 in these parts where I'm from, all the way down here, miles and miles from you.
Yeah.
We typically refer to that as the Y5, right?
The Y5, because it's
we call
traveling
it the
across
Y5.
the air?
Like, yeah, man, I'm Y5ing.
So what is the air 5 then? Or is it the same thing, just different name?
It's just the same thing. A different
name. So it's a regional thing. It's colloquialism.
It's a regional colloquialism.
There's Borat doing. I don't have. There's
high five.
Just I got it for that alone. Just the name and
Jinqui. My sister, #1 prostitute, all of Uzbekistan. Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan,
Yeah.
different country.
That guy's great. I've got the high five going on the top right hand corner. That's Tom Cruise and what's his name?
Yep.
That guy.
Anthony Edwards.
Anthony Edwards.
Hey, speaking of which, I never high fived until that. Like I wasn't a big sports guy, but once it happened in Top Gun, this guy right here, and the Need for Speed, dude, every chance I could get,
the need for speed. I was going to use that one.
Yeah, and the line has to go with it. Like if you walk up to somebody with your hand up and you say, I got the need, it's going to be a top and a bottom. Like
the need for speed. The bottom left-hand corner, that is the selfie high five, which I love Tina Fey's version of it. There's other people that have done it, but
I will have you know that Tina Fey, I find to be the most beautiful woman in the world. I would leave my wife for her.
Really?
I love Tina Fey.
Well, let's let her know.
There's just something about a woman with that level of comedic timing. She is just amazing. I love her.
Yeah,
great writer.
But yeah, just the look and that. I mean, it's just perfect. There's the Obama fist bump. That was a lot of controversy there. It's a variation, I guess, of the high five. Maybe.
I did read that you spread 32% less germs by high fiving versus shaking hands. So you got that.
I guess it's the amount of contact. And if you're down in the South, then that just escalates because sometimes people don't want to seem to let go of your hand down here in the South when your hand's shaking for whatever reason. And they have wandering hands sometimes too. I've got Adam Sandler down there.
I thought we already covered Cosby.
Picture pages. Let's see the double high five. Oh yeah, I've got it there. That's they're doing it right there down in Double Dare. You see that little thing there? They're doing a couple things. They're showboating here, but the double high five. Which why didn't they ever call it the double, like the high 10? Why is it not called the high 10? Why is it called the high five?
I don't know. I didn't know that had a name, but that's not what men should be doing.
No, they shouldn't. Hey, you know one other interesting fact? Sorry. Let me go back one. I want to go back one screen. Willie Brown, the guy that I mentioned earlier about, he was the one saying that we claimed it. That dude only had 9 fingers. And so when he gave the high five,
he couldn't have originated it.
He only did it with 4.
It's mathematically impossible that he originated the high five.
So there you go. I don't know why. I just remembered that. But so back to this screen here. Did I miss any other variants of the high five?
No, you got the one with Chris Farley and Adam Sandler over there. And I got to tell you, Chris Farley is one of the funniest comedians that's ever lived.
Yes.
But whenever I see this clip, it reminds me of the performance that Adam Sandler does of a song called "My Friend Chris Farley," the tribute song.
I've seen videos. Yes.
It is the song I will write for you when you die. I will write you a very similar song, but it won't be about being funny. It'll just be about other things.
About being wrong and how much crap I got wrong on the references. I appreciate that.
So this, so that actually makes me sad seeing that because it reminds me of that
song.
Yeah.
It's a great song. I've seen him do it live a couple times. Well, recorded doing it live, but
yeah, he did it live on SNL.
Yep. Holy crap! Look at that. We got through the show.
Well done, sir. 3 chapters.
Well, I mean, 3 chapters. That's a good bang for your buck kind of thing.
Yeah, I want you to know that we were at 1 hour and 35 minutes when we got through chapter 13. So I was doing the math in my head, and I was like, you know what? I don't know if anyone's going to stick around for 4.5 hours. I mean, I might as well just go take a shower and head straight to the office.
Go ahead and do that now. I'll close it up. Go ahead and do it.
Done wrangling the cats there, Bert, toward the end, man. That was fantastic. You flew, but, like you said, chapter 15 really didn't have too much going on. It was a lot of setup for the future.
Yeah, the future. Yeah, exactly right. And that's a good point because we're going to roll into chapter 16 in the next episode and get into level 2. And I want to see if we can we may try to do chapter 17 as well. I don't know. They're pretty light in terms of references. It's more narrative. So we'll try to see it. Hopefully, if we can keep it under 2 hours, great. If not, we may just do chapter 16 only. We should be okay. We should be okay.
Let's see what we got for guest options too. I was like getting a third person in here, getting a little menage a trois.
That is not a word, and the word that you just used sounds
in there. I used the word talk.
Horrible. I know, but it sounds so disgusting. It's like the word moist. Okay, so I got one thing for the scoreboard. I want to give a shout out to Danny P out in the UK who gave us an iTunes review just very recently. He says, "Don't call it a comeback." Oh, come on! You're taking a drink right when I teed you up for the. Mama
I've
said
been
knock
here
you.
for years. I got to move my mic up if I'm going to do this.
All right, he says, "Don't call it a comeback. I'm so happy they brought this podcast back. The new format with a chapter of podcast is great, and guests have always been funny and informative." Sorry, we just broke that. We broke that formula on this show, so we do appreciate the review. Anyways, okay, no. So he says the host Albert is obviously the star, and he is so passionate about the book and the references that it adds to the podcast.
Oh, wait a minute! Did he actually write that?
No, I didn't.
I think you wrote that.
I didn't write this.
Albert is definitely the star. I want you to know, sir, I'm comfortable not being a star because those are dead.
All right. Well, thank you.
The majority of the stars you see, I will have that reviewer know, have died millions of years ago.
All right. Well, Danny P, thank you very much for your review. Definitely appreciate it. And thank you for everybody that tuned into the show tonight. JR, thanks for being here. Thanks for everyone else that was listening to the show. Please tell everybody about the show. Subscribe here on YouTube. Pick up the podcast. Subscribe there. We're on everything, including Spotify. Anywhere you get your podcast, please subscribe to that as well. And again, we'll be back next week for Chapter 16, Level 2, and probably Chapter 17. Will, any final words before we head out of here?
Yeah, thanks for listening, JR. Love having you. I love seeing your comments as we're going through this. It's almost like you're a third member. You're the silent member of our show. You're almost like a stage producer who sits backstage and just feeds us lines. It's fantastic.
Yep.
Have a good night.
Yep. We'll see you guys next week.
We'll see you next week.
Yes, sir. Thanks, man.
Take care.